It's the Geeky Gamer Podcast.
What? Oh, for some reason my mic volume was turned way down on that. So I'm going to say that again. It's Thursday, Geeky Gamer Podcast.
That's right.
Thanks for joining us. This week, we are happy to have all lowercase letters and Mr. Interrupt do the music, as well as Couchfire Media brings the production, and Trois Replay Productions brings all that other stuff.
We actually don't know what they do. Haven't heard from them in a while.
Today's episode, we're going to feature John Wilson, who created a tabletop role-playing game. He's the author of the Legends of Venice, which is the first setting book, and the Linen Tapestry. It's basically a reimagining. I'm going to get this wrong, and we're going to talk about why, or maybe I'll get it right. I don't know. But from what I've gathered, it's a reimagining of Venice during the 15th century, teeming with innovation, ruthless ambition, supernatural intrigue, heroes, governing, I don't know, Mediterranean stuff.
Yeah, no, that kind of, that's a good blurb for the back of the book. Yeah.
It's immersive, very immersive, a lot of description, a lot of people. There's a lot of different, there's a ton of lore in this book. It looks like from pre-built characters to building your own character and to being in a place. And all of this is wonderful, but what's on our minds is what are you drinking tonight, John, and how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, and I'm drinking a bit of Kraken, woman Coke. Fan that I am.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Set for the night.
Hard.
And where are you located?
Chester Street, northeast England. So that's between Durham and Newcastle upon Tyne.
Nice. And what time? It's exactly 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's New York time. What time is it? And
just turned 8. Just turned 8.
All right. That's amazing. So it's let's get into it.
Yeah. Sure.
What are you drinking, Bill?
I'm drinking Buffalo Trace and coffee.
Okay,
That's right.
exciting.
That's right. Not together. We're not together. I had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and it goes best with a cup of coffee. And Geeky Gamer Podcast goes best
With a little bourbon. Yeah, I'm drinking your cousin bourbon, a little Eagle Rare.
Okay. You got to one-up me. I understand. It's fine. I hate you. Yeah, so, John, who are you?
Well, God, good question. I'm a tabletop roleplay author, creator, designer. About 10, 15 years ago, after years and years of playing roleplay games like Vampire, Call of Cthulhu, amongst many, I just thought, right, I can do this myself. And so I started building up the setting for the Great Cycle, and then from that, created the Linen Tapestry Roleplay Game. Created my own system for it, original system, original setting. And then a few years ago, I did a Kickstarter campaign, which failed, but I thought, well, I'll just get it out there anyway. So it's on drive-through. So as soon as I'd finishing the core rules and getting that out, I started on the next project, which was Legends of Venice.
Yeah, I understand intimately. We were just talking about this off stream. Intimately, that everything you just said, I know. Even to the idea of, so you started this journey 10 years ago.
Yeah, 10, 15 years ago. Yeah.
So were you running the game? I'm going to take a stab at this. Were you running the sort of proto game, perhaps the world in games, like other systems?
No, it was actually started off with Vampire Dark Ages.
Oh my god, I fucking love.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just dropped an F-bomb, like, but whatever.
Absolutely brilliant setting.
Dude.
System, brilliant.
System,
And-
I get the setting.
Yeah. So what I liked about Dark Ages was the mix of history, myth, and the lore behind Vampire, and that fascinated me more than, say, Vampire the Masquerade. And then, one of the good things about roleplay games is you play a game, you write a story, and then you start writing your own setting, and you start tweaking mechanics, you start tweaking what's going on in the lore, and after a while, it becomes your own. And then I just took that a couple of steps further. You've mentioned before about the system. I like the system, but I always thought it could be better. So I just started from scratch, created my own system, and then went back to some of the ideas I'd introduced in the story. And then I just went from that. So it kind of branched off from an existing game, which I think went on for about 2 years. I was running it for.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just Vampire Dark Age. I've always got a soft spot for it.
Dude, I just not to go off the rails a little bit, but one of my buddies, very good ST, which you'll understand that term, storyteller, just finished a Dark Ages game. We probably concluded it maybe a year ago, and it had been going for 3.5.
Wow.
So. They played it before me. I jumped in, and I was playing a La Sombra, and what he had done, a guy named Patrick, he's actually been on GGP, or we've talked about him a lot. He took all of those modules, the 800 years, modules throughout, and that's what we ran. It's such a deep setting.
Yeah.
The system I've got, I have a diatribe about. So I'm very interested in your system and the mechanics you brought up and the lore and all that good stuff.
No problem. So, do you want to start with the mechanics or the setting?
Ken, it's dealer's choice, sir.
I think we go for set and setting. I like why Venice to start? I mean, what is it that intrigued you about the Dark Ages? It's just pre-Renaissance. Am I wrong about that?
No, yeah, you're right. It's the Renaissance kicks in Florence in, I think, the mid 15th century or something like that. So I've set it in Venice deliberately before the Renaissance. The setting, Venice is just a wonderful city. Its history, if you wanted to make a bad guy in Europe as a city, Venice would be a great candidate. It's done so many bad things, such as stealing the corpse of a saint, orchestrating the Fourth Crusade against Constantinople, all the backstabbing. Venice has done it so well, but at the same time, Venice has done so many amazing things. First, free schooling, secret police, mass production of ships, just innovation upon innovation. And the Linen Tapestry is about innovation. It's the expanded setting is the whole idea of there are souls, and the souls occupy a person. And if that person has what it takes to change the world, introduce a dream to the world, whether it be innovation, create a new kingdom, empire, anything, then that soul will sever itself from the great cycle, and the person that it's hosting becomes what's called a red hand, and the red hand has to do everything it can to bring its dream to fruition. It's not something that they have to do immediately. This is a game where you could play it as a one-off, but for the best enjoyment, you'd have to play it as a long campaign, a long chronicle.
And to stick to setting a little bit, I mean, do you have? It looks like you have maps of this is the real Venice, like in place. Is it? There's like maps of Venice. There's maps of like buildings, I presume, that are in Venice. Is it historically accurate in location and maps and stuff like that?
Yeah, there'll be maybe 50, 100 years out of sync, but I mean, for example, that map there is in the 1400s, so that's pretty close. But then the other maps for the palace, not all. It'll be a bit before its time, but just for the setting, just so that if you want to run a story inside the palace, then you've got something to work with. So it's not a history book, it's a game. I just wanted to use as much of the resources available to flesh it out, and then apply the law of the greater setting to it. And if history has to be sacrificed, then just a little bit. Yeah.
And the people you have in this, I know that there are a lot of pre-built characters. Are they real people, or did you create them?
A lot of them are historical characters, so the whole idea behind them is they're either genuine mythical figures, such as Ursus, or real historical characters who their souls have severed, so they stopped being mortal and became one of the severed souls, and they've lived on, and Venice is home to their dreams. So they're the mixture. Say about a third of them are historically based characters, and the rest of them are characters I've just made up to fill in the gaps, advance stories, and just to give narrators and players an idea of if they were to make a character in Venice, who would they know? Who could be their allies? Who could be their villains? Who could be the enemies? That sort of thing.
And Christianity was kind of a big deal, I think, at that time. Was it not?
I think so.
That was pretty big. Is Christianity one of the religions? Do you have some Roman gods in there, like kind of trying to like get some, or is that not really in the game?
No. So the biggest setting is the story of the Severed Soul effectively starts at the early Sumerian period, like 3,500 BC, where the first souls were severed and they became the gods, the Roman gods, the Greek gods, Egyptian gods. But there are entities out there far greater than them called the Mysteries, and one group are the angels, and the angels have their rules, and one of the rules is no one can pose as a god. So there's, after a millennia of conflict between the angels, or the exalted, and the severed souls, the exalted one, and they have imposed their rule upon the severed souls. And in place of pantheons of gods, now we have the world religions, Christianity. So Venice is a Christian city. It has done things that's made it excommunicated, and they've done everything they can to be recommunicated. So religion is a massive aspect of the game.
And do you take some liberties with the religion in there, or is it do you have the Bible, and or is it kind of like a Bible adjacent concept.
Yeah, I'm deliberately not delved into any biblical or Quranic or any sort of figures like that.
Old Testament, New Testament.
Yeah, I wanted to stick with the myths.
Yeah.
And then have the myths fade out. And then now there's people who are immortal. Yeah. But do they believe in a god? That's entirely up to them. And
there is a supernatural element. Like, do people have the ability to conjure, animals, or can they shoot laser beam from their eyeballs, or?
Yes to all of that, really. So
nice.
When the character's soul is severed, they're no longer subject to the rules of the domain of the realm that they're in. So because they're not subject to the rules, they can bend the rules. So they can cast magic, they can perform spells, and at the same time, their severed soul has its own entity. So this entity could be in the form of a werewolf form. It could be in the form of a winged horse that appears. It could be a weapon, piece of armor. It could be like a swarm of bees, a nest of vipers.
I do like the swarm of bees.
Yeah, so it's just each character has. So each character has its avatar, and the avatar takes whatever form they want. So it'll either be a horde, such as bees, a usum, which is like a werewolf, that sort of thing. Artifact, weapon, that sort of thing, or a familiar, and the familiar accompanies the character. So it could either start off small, and then as your character gets more experience, you can develop your avatar, or if you want to be more focused on spells magic, you can focus on the spells. And the third branch of magic really is rituals, which has long-term effects rather than instant effects, which is where spells and tricks come involved.
So it really encompasses a lot of different forms of magic, and
yeah, it's deliberate. I have to, because all the myths that I've had to borrow from and researched and read up and fallen in love with has all of it. So I've had to create a system that allows all form of folklore, myths, magic, everything in it.
How does one go about? So you've got a character, you're starting a character. How do you go from, like, what makes a player character different from, like, the average human? Is there?
So the stages really. The first stage is you start off as mundane, just an everyday normal person. Unbeknownst to them, they're latent severed soul. Their soul inside them is waiting for them to do something, to push themselves to the point where do or die, they have to do something. And then the soul severs, and the world is given a glimpse of that character at full power for a scene. They can accomplish anything that they want for that scene. And then once the high ends, the character is then subject to something called kenning. And it's the hangover for several months of them coming to terms with how they now see the world, because they'll be conscious of the other realms. They're conscious of the fact that this realm isn't what it looks like, that there's more going on. And there's a bit in between, so that if your character sees magic, they'll become initiated, so their perception of the world will be expanded a little bit. They can perform a little bit of magic. They're like, I don't know, ghouls and vampire. And that's like a bridge between being a mundane character to being a red hand. And then once you're a red hand, you have an avatar. You choose which form it takes. You have one of the 8 elements. So in this game, you've got your 4 standard elements, but you've got 4 others, which is metal, wood, body, and electricity. And you choose one of those 8 as the element that your soul is based on.
Far out, man. You mentioned earlier exalted, and
Yeah.
I was just checking to make sure that I was right. So I was in an exalted game a long time ago where you're basically playing gods and different tiers of gods.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting current of this sort of story, fairy tale and such. I want to say, what was the newer movie? I think it's a Marvel movie.
The Eternals.
Yeah, the Eternals. Where I'm assuming a red hand is not an eternal, or is it?
No, so the Exalted is just the catch-all term for these beings who, to some, appear as angels. Depending on what religion you believe in, the Exalted are the emissaries, the servants of a greater power.
This is
based on the religion. Yeah, in this game.
Yeah.
So the Red Hands are just people who, because their soul has been severed from the Great Cycle, they can't die in the normal way. They stop aging. They can be killed, but they'll be regenerated. Only way for them to die is for their soul itself to be destroyed,
Right.
or if they're separated from their soul. Yeah.
Right. Like Sauron.
Yeah.
Although Sauron he's not killed.
He doesn't. I guess he's too powerful to even to. He's not. But I mean, he was effectively like untethered when they destroyed the ring. Spoiler alert.
Utterly,
Yeah.
Man,
Where were we?
spoilers.
Well, if you haven't seen Lord of the Rings and you're watching the Geeky Gamer podcast, I feel pity for you.
You're not our target audience. It's pretty.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are exalted in this world then.
Yeah, but it's just a catch-all term for angels. So
Okay.
Nice.
So the supernatural beings.
yeah.
Are the Red Hand greater or lesser, or where their power level lie? A player character versus an exalted, or yeah.
Think of it this way: no one knows how old.
One.
Yes, or the shining ones. Yeah, no one knows how old the exalted are. They are ancient. A red hand could be a day old, a year old, 100 years, and their power level. They'll be able to perform some magic. Avatar could become a well-known werewolf or something like that. But when it comes to a conflict between a red hand and an exalted, there was a reason why the exalted won the conflict millennia ago. And
The Red Hand and the exalted had a conflict.
yeah, there's different types of severed souls. So you have a red hand, and they must, over a period of time, bring their dream to fruition. And when they do, because a red hand is effectively a force of change, they want to tear down the establishment and replace it with their dream. But when they do, they become what's known as a blue blood, and then a blue blood has to keep their dream intact. If a red hand's dream fails to become real, they become a grey skin. And a grey skin, they will linger in the real world, in the mundane realm, but they will slowly fade into the realm of the dead, the Shadowlands, where everything is created from memories. But a lot of grey skins hang around for as long as they can, seeking vengeance against those that stop them. So those three are those three are the severed souls. So you start off with red hand, and if you succeed, you become a blue blood, and then the next target of the next generation or next wave of red hands, or grey skin who has nothing left. Their whole purpose of becoming a severed soul has died, and they'll do whatever they can to either come to terms with that or seek vengeance, because they've got nothing else to lose.
Now, what do the Exalted think about all this?
As far as, well, that's part of the mystery. They were the police like thousands and thousands of years ago. So the setting is set into 3 ages. So they've got the Age of Gods, which is 3,500 BC to say 2000 BC or 1500 BC. And that's
time. Well, actually, it's a little bit before Achilles, but I see what you're saying.
yeah. So the whole the Odyssey and the Iliad takes part in what's known as the Age of Heroes.
Right. Okay.
And that's when the ancients, the very first severed souls, have abandoned this world and they've moved on to other world or faded into the Shadowlands. And those that remain lost to the Exalted, and the Exalted imposed their laws, and so they just live by them. But as it moved into the Age of Empires, or Emperors, the Exalted have begun to fade, and they have servants who are other severed souls who carry out their work for them. But they're not the Exalted. So there is perhaps personal agendas seeping into world religions, because world religions are the things created by the Exalted to keep everyone in line, depending on how you look at it. It's one of those things where if the narrator wants to have the Exalted as cruel oppressors, they can have them like that if they want. If they want to have them so that they're a source of enlightenment, hope for the world, they can have them like that as well. It's a bit like Dark Souls. I don't want to have everything set in stone. I want to have it bits of information,
A little fluid.
and if the players give players and narrators the opportunity to bring their own interpretation.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. It's one of my sort of gripes about some of the other lore and system is, like for example, Dark Ages, which we all have big boners over. The issue is, for me, there's kind of a set in stone. You can't, even in like Warhammer 40K, there's kind of a set in stone. This is what happens, and you can play in the cracks, and there's a large cracks to play in, but like in 40K, nothing good is ever going to happen. If something good happens, it
won't last long.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and then it's not 40K. Or in Dark Ages, it's like, right, well, you might think Cain is a good guy, or you might think Lilith is a good guy, but nobody's a good guy. So I like that fluidity of you can kind of change it and make it what you want. Yeah. That's interesting. It's interesting. So could you play this game? Thinking of your inspirations, could you play this game not as a red hand, but as a mundane person rocking and rolling?
Yes. Yeah. In the book, there's an introductory story, and the characters have no idea about the supernaturals. They're just everyday people. And the introductory story is just designed to introduce characters or players to the system, the setting, like the political setting, things that would kind of go on in Venice. And then at the end, there's a glimpse of magic. And then just to give the players just an idea of the setting. And then stories then would move on from that. Characters would be initiated or become red hands. But yeah, it's if you wanted to play a game where it's just all mundanes investigating things going on, like Call of Cthulhu or something like that,
Right,
you
that's
could.
where I was going with it.
Yeah,
Like you're trying to stop the red hand from becoming
Yeah,
a blue blood or whatever. Or
yep. The narrator could easily create a story where you as the characters are working against a red hand without realizing that this person's immortal and could
Right.
kill you within a second, because there are rules that stop red hands from doing whatever they want.
kind of like mage, like they can't reveal certain things or.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's two main things. One is the laws of the Exalted. That's the social aspect of it, and then the mechanical side of it is backlash, where if you perform magic in front of witnesses, they're all part of the collective unconscious. And if your actions ripple the collective unconscious a bit too much, your link with your soul is stretched to the point where it snaps. So your character won't die, but it has no access to its soul. So no avatar, no spells, you are just a normal person. And if you're slain in this state, game over.
So
go on, Ken.
I was just wondering if does that have to do with the severed soul? Is that how you get your soul severed? I was confused because I thought that you had to be a severed soul to play, but it sounds like you could just be, or can you not?
You can start off as a mundane. And you can either start off as a mundane, and the narrator's got options, so they can say, right, well, I want to start you off as a mundane, and you're all going to go through the event that severs your soul from the Great Cycle, and at that point they become a red hand, and then the game changes entirely. Or you could just have it so that they just start off as mundanes and remain as mundanes. Obviously, that will be a short campaign, short chronicle.
Sure.
But
you can gain these supernatural abilities.
You can, if you're initiated by witnessing magic.
Yeah.
Then you can perform minor magic, but it's only if you're gone.
As long as so you watch this spell happen, and then I guess it's the storytellers can frame that into the story on how you use the magic, or are there stats that automatically kind of pop up if you survive the encounter.
Yeah, so for example, if there's a group of people, and someone a red hand summons their avatar, which is like a bear or something like that. So for everyone except the player, they would see a man change into a half man, half bear form. But for the latent initiate, they would see the person vanish from this realm and be replaced by this half bear, half human form. And because that's that interpretation, which is the truth interpretation, that initiates them. So because they latently see things differently to the rest of the population, that's what initiates them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
And then,
but I've also played a few of those games.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's got a vibe, you know, like I see a lot of the inspirations that you're talking about. Here's a question: could you play a game where you're all a bunch of red hands, but you've all made a really big fuck up, and so your souls are actually detached, and you got to go find them?
No. Trying to think if that's possible.
Because that's exactly the game I would run.
Well,
you can do anything but what Bill wants to do. I think
what
that's
I
fair.
would do. And then you got that cool character conflict of, do you actually want to continue being the Red
right.
Hand, or do you not? And then you get the PvP and the blah 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 blah. You know,
Yeah.
the one
No,
NPC who's actually just trying to turn you all into grayskins and is like, I'm the one who made it happen. Whatever.
So in the setting, so going back to the severing of the soul. So when a character awakens, their soul is severed, their soul leaves the great cycle, and it then dwells in a little pocket dimension outside of the great cycle called the sanctuary. And this sanctuary is where your red hand or your grayskin or your blue blood could go to, and it forms like a nexus, like a bridging point. So there is a crossing point or a Nibiru between your character's sanctuary and the mundane, and then one for the Shadowlands, and then one for Otherworld. So if there's too much feedback and there's a backlash and your characters become separated from your soul resides within the sanctuary. So you would kind of know where it is. You could travel and get into the sanctuary. It would be a bit difficult because if the narrator wanted to be evil, you could have it so that whatever protections you had set up in your sanctuary, such as a maze or monsters, your narrator could say, they don't recognize you. And you'd have to then either wait it out for the connection to be repaired, which would happen over time in a matter of months, or you could, if you desperately needed to get in contact with your soul again, the narrator could say, right, okay, you need to overcome the obstacles that you've put in as a safety security measure to get back to your soul. That is not something I've ever thought of, so I would just say it's entirely up to the narrator.
I think it'd be cool.
That would be that's quite interesting.
A little, because I'm really into adventure locations and the OSR community and stuff. You know, old school revival, and I have a newsletter that I put up specifically for this stuff for system agnostic modules. But I think it'd be interesting. I don't know if it'd work in this lore, but it's something maybe to consider. Is that 1-page adventure or that 3-page adventure is you guys are helping your buddy out because they've lost their soul, and your buddy is the NPC, right? So there's the secret. So you guys have your powers, or maybe you're mundane people, but you have some powers, or you're helping this red hand so that you can move up, whatever it is. But then you have to go through exactly what you just said. That's the dungeon. And then you can have the plot twists however you want. Oh, it turns out they're the devil, or whatever you want.
Yeah.
And then you move to your next adventure.
I
think
there is really, if like one of the punishments from the Exalted is if they know the entrances to a sanctuary, they can cast their own magic and seal them so that the character can't get in.
Whoa.
So you could have an adventure where your character's really messed up, you've stepped on too many toes, you've broken cardinal rules, so to speak, and you then must have to try and circumnavigate what the Exalted have put up. And you could have a group of friends who, if they're willing to risk the wrath of the Exalted to help someone who's in their bad books, then yes, you could do. But
well, instead of making it Exalted, you would make it one of their proxies. So one of those guys you were talking about that is maybe not playing by the Exalted rules. You know? So it's the end of Robin Hood when King Richard comes back and he's like, all right, John.
Are punishments like
Yeah.
a big thing?
Will be known to
is there
be-
some?
Ken, I was telling a joke.
Oh,
So I'm having a bit problems with the volume sometimes, but the sound, should I say?
I was quoting a movie, man. No one heard. Doesn't matter. Go
well,
on.
everybody kind of
You guys
froze
listen to
for a second. There was like a moment of space where maybe I was
a liminal state.
yeah. I was like, everybody stop talking. I didn't hear anything.
All right.
so
what were you saying?
The punishments, is that kind of like a thing in the culture, or is that are we like Spanish Inquisitioning some stuff, or is there like the church? Are they severe against people who speak out? I mean, is there like a cultural, I guess, dilemma?
Levels. There's levels of punishment. I mean, the mysteries or the exalted, because there's different types of mysteries, but I'll go into them later on. But for the exalted, they are one of the few entities that can just kill the soul of the person. So if you enter combat with one of the exalted and they defeat you, they're not just killing your body, they're actually destroying your soul at the same time. So that's the ultimate punishment. And there's other levels of punishment, which is such as the sealing of entrances to the sanctuaries, and then just whatever the narrator wants to come up with, really.
Then there's the Bill level of punishment where if he's mid-joke, he's going to get you.
Yes, no one hears the punchline for the joke and you're forever cursed.
Forever.
Forever.
How much does the player...
Oh, come on.
How much does the player need to know about this setting? I mean, do you have to be advanced, or can the narrator be the one that knows everything and the players can just walk around aimlessly, or do the players have to do research?
Well, for example, in Legends of Venice, it would be advised for the players to read the first chapter. If they're from Venice, skim read of the first chapter, which is the history, skim read of the second chapter, which is the geography, just to get an idea. Because if you're from Venice, you'll know things that if you're a traveler and you're entering Venice, you don't really need to know anything. You're there in either a new resident or you're there in passing. And if you're a mundane and you've there's no reason for you to know anything in Venice other than why you're there. And then if you're dropped into a story, major events happening, then it's just like a blank slate for them, and then they can learn as they're going along. So if you want a character who is from Venice, knowing a bit about Venice itself will help you with your backstory, so that when you're creating a character, you know where to fit in. So that, like, in character creation, you've got to consider society. Do you have backing? Are you wealthy? Do you have allies? Do you have a network? That sort of thing. And it's one of the chapters helps the player fit their character into it. So if they're a noble, certain rules on being a noble. If you're a soldier, how you'd fit into the military. If you're a sailor, how you'd fit in with the navy. If you're an engineer, how you'd fit into things such as the arsenal, which you've got up there. So if you're in Venice, it's best to read the book, except for the last chapter, because obviously the last chapter is the narrator chapter, so where secrets are. And just make up your character as you want.
I think.
Go ahead.
Do you have other questions about the lore, Ken?
What is the, what are the classes of characters that you can be? You said there's a noble, there's a soldier, there's a I'm sure there's a peasant.
There's no set classes. It's one of my pet peeves is games that have you start off as a warrior and you remain a warrior and you go up in levels. This is you can make whatever you want. You could have a noble who dabbles with combat, or you could be a brigand who has mercantile connections, that sort of thing. It's completely freeform. I don't want to pigeonhole players into, we've got a group, there's 4 of us, who's going to be the healer, who's going to be the fighter, who's going to be the mage, that sort of thing. This is more of a, certainly in this setting, this is just an equal balance between social, physical combat, and being smart enough to know things, work things out, plan things, because it's you can play this as a long-term game. You need to be political. You need to think about the consequences of your actions and then trying to make the most of any chaos or upset that happens, that sort of thing.
Seems very much like a vampire game in that regard.
Yeah.
Because you're thinking in centuries, not in years.
Yeah, I mean, or if you wanted to just play like a one-off, you can just make up your characters, play that one story, and then move on to the next game. That sort of thing. It's there's options there. But
I would like to know. I'd like to know about the rules now. I'd like to know about some mechanics, because I at least have a pretty good understanding of the lore and kind of like maybe how the feel of the game, right?
Yeah.
Kind of what the agenda of the game is, right? And correct if I'm wrong, it's a game session. People get together. They have their characters. They're in this world. And then I'll just let you answer this. What is the agenda of this system? So you're all there. You're going to do a long campaign. It's like exactly like what the game's for. What are they supposed to get out of it? And what's the sort of play style supposed to look like?
Okay. A base style entirely up to the players and the narrator. I mean, it's always good for the narrator to have a conversation with the players beforehand, just like, what sort of game do you want to play? Do you want a full combat game where it's just battle after battle? Do you want a game where there's intrigue? Do you want a game where you're up against greater supernatural, mysterious figures and you've got to try and solve the mystery before a major event happens? That's entirely there.
What I
players and the narrator. Sorry.
What I mean is, where I'm going is, for example, in a D&D game, so Dungeons and Dragons, let's say like 5th edition, so everybody knows it, right? When you sit down at the table, there's a feeling that the system is going for. And that feeling is not going to be what you get in a White Wolf Dark Ages game.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Not because of the lore, because of the way the system actually works. You know, if a system is more plotting and calculated and a lot of mechanics and tables and all these things, that's going to be a certain pace, a way of thinking, versus if you have like a really rules light system where it's like, cool, what do you do? Doesn't matter what you say, roll that die, boom, you did it or you didn't. That's a much more fast paced. So what's the agenda of the system? What kind of, what does a turn look like? And this is why I was trying to getting into maybe mechanics, but however you want to answer that.
God, that is a hell of a question.
You're welcome.
Have a drink first.
Yeah, let me go get some ice. Is that clear what I'm asking? Because I know that's a hell of a question. I get it.
I think one example is Magic, the magic system and the combat system, they're designed to be merged together. So for example, with spells, there's not a list of spells that you know. There are a list of tricks, and within each trick, there is several interpretations how it would look.
Right.
You as a player, the system is designed for you to explore how to use those tricks to create spells that suit you. With combat, there's unarmed, melee, and thrown and archery. In melee, you've got 4 types of combat: hacking, slashing, piercing, bashing. So you can create your own style of combat from the variety. But if you wanted to merge the two together, so you would overlay your tricks with, say, a bashing style, which is all about making your opponent dazed, slowing them down, making them sluggish. You could overlay it with spells that directly affect how they're thinking. So the agenda within the system is about getting players and narrators to, rather than just say, right, I want to cast a spell, it does this, move on. The agenda is cast a spell, to what effect and what style, and do you want that to become a signature spell? Because you don't have to write down all the spells that you create, but if you're making signature spells which are linked to you, and if you're performing it and people who are aware of that signature style, they'll say, right, so-and-so's performed that spell. So it's
character development, like is what I'm getting at. Okay.
Yeah.
Could you do me a favor real quick?
Sure.
All right. So what's one of the tricks?
So one of the tricks. So there's 5 tiers of magic. There is detection, understanding, direct, alter, and create. So the first level is just being able to perceive the elements. So one of the tricks is elemental radar. So you could perform this trick. Your spells are linked with one of the 8 elements, one of the 8 patterns. So you could have it so that, right,
like electricity or lightning.
Electricity. Electricity is also mind. So you can perform a trick and say you can expand the range of the radar. So if you're in a dungeon and there's a closed door in front of you, or 2 or 3 doors around you, and you have no idea what's going on behind them, you perform your trick, expand the radar, and if there are any mines behind those doors, you'll spot them.
Okay. This is the favor time. Ken, I hope you were listening. Okay, so let's say Ken is playing a red hand. All right? I hope you were listening, Ken, because if you're not, you could be real lost. Let's say he's got a trick. Let's say his element is electricity.
Yeah.
Okay? Give him a trick really quick. Put him in a dungeon. Same thing you just said, maybe the catacombs of Venice or something. And have him do something. See if he can do it. And then lead him through the steps that he would need to go through.
All right, okay. So, right, you're beneath St. Mark's Cathedral. There is a series of catacombs. It's said that in one of these rooms is the burial site of St. Mark, the saint that was stolen from Alexandria many, many years ago. And it is said to have alongside it a certain item. But unfortunately, with all precious items, there are guards. Your job, or what you've been tasked to do, is to sneak into the cathedral, which you've managed to do. You found the secret entrance, the trapdoor leading into the catacombs, but it's pitch black. You can hear things in the distance, behind doors, behind walls, but it's so dark that all you can make out is that the sound of water dripping? Is it the sound of rats scuttling around? Or is that people? So you have at your disposal a trick known as elemental radar. This allows you to, the effect is to detect, not to understand, just to simply detect the presence of your element within a certain range. So you've gone down the steps. In front of you, there are 3 doors at the end of a narrow corridor. It's damp. All around you, there's just moisture. There's dripping. It's kind of a slightly fetid smell in this corridor. Not the sort of place you'd want to be in for long. But so, what would you do?
So there are 3 doors in front of me.
Yeah.
Bill was right. I was only partially listening, but I'm gonna improvise. I'm gonna go up to one of the doors, and kind of. I guess I've got maybe a dry pelt on of some kind. Some animal fur. I don't know. It's just a thing. Would I use my elemental radar to see if like I get any charge of electricity with the fur on the skin of my clothing?
Yeah, it'll be so
from the first door, and then measure that versus the other 2 doors and see if there's a particular door that
Okay. All right. So by casting a spell, you're expanding your consciousness. You're using that very faint static electricity as a reference point, I guess, on your radar. That is the center point. Imagine Aliens, where you have that motion tracker. That's kind of what this spell would create in your head, if that's how you wanted to have it described. The spells are unique for each person. You can put your own stamp onto it. So your mind expands. On your left, the spell won't allow you to discern the size of the room or what's behind the door.
Mm-hmm.
And as your consciousness expands out, you can see that there's no electrical activity beyond the left door. On the right, there is, to your surprise, one, and you can, if you keep up the radar for longer, you can see it moving around. So you're stood at this crossroads, so to speak, between 3 doors, eyes closed, concentrating, and you can see to your right, beyond this door, maybe 5 feet, moving to 10 feet away, and then back again. But most alarming is that behind the door in front, there are 3 mines. There are 3 clusters of electricity behind this door, and they are not moving.
Okay.
Now,
well, that's interesting.
So at this point, because you've walked down as a narrator, and what we like to do is do a secret dice roll. So the system, So for me, it'll be a case of they'll be listening out. These are the 3 guards. They will be listening out. Have you made any noise as you've been treading through the water? So on the character sheet, if you want to bring that up, and I've got one here.
Yeah, I've got it.
This system's based on unless it's 2 people competing against each other, such as a race.
Printed it out. That's awesome.
Oh yes.
Ken printed it out.
Oh yeah. When we were chatting before, I was very surprised, or very impressed. Sorry, with the preparation.
Nice.
So I'd make a roll, but rather than you having to make a stealth roll, you would have on your character sheet. I'm gonna have to take this out. Stop. So if you got your sheet in front of you, there is underneath stealth something called overlooked. So when I roll for my characters in the top right there,
Yeah.
so rather than having you make a roll, I make a roll, to make the flow of play a little bit quicker, in general, only one person makes a roll. So my characters would roll a perceptions surveillance roll, and your overlooked tally figure would be deducted from it. So that's your defense. So I would make a roll depending on how stealthy you are, how good your overlooked is. You would be overlooked completely, so you don't need to make a roll, and I would make that roll completely secret. And
so
then
really quick, make the roll. You don't have to go into numbers. Just tell us if he succeeds or fails.
Okay.
Or I should say, if they succeed or fail.
Yeah. Okay.
Wouldn't I have to have a number though?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll just give you a number. Give him
a number.
normal number.
Give me a number. Average number. I would say I'm not very stealthy, but I am creeping around in a dungeon late at night.
Well,
on a
what I'll do then is
Thursday.
I will describe this, how the mechanics behind the system. So if you scroll over to the left a bit, on the character sheet you've got stats, and these are your dice pools. So across the board, everything is between rank 1 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
When you're creating a character, you allocate your points amongst the ranks, and your dice pool, or dice, is that rank times 2. So if you've got a rank of 3, you'd roll 6 dice. And then on top of that, you have your skills. So agility, athletics, guile, for example, they're your skills.
To it.
And the rank in your skill determines how many dice you keep. So you'd roll 6, and then you keep, say you've got 3 in agility or 3 in perception. You roll 6 dice, you keep 3 dice.
I see.
And the whole idea is you're building up a tally. So rather than saying you've rolled a 7, that's a success, this system's a little bit more in depth.
So really quick, I'm gonna cut you off a little bit. I want to know about the mechanics, but not yet.
Yeah. Okay. So I
want to stay in the fiction for a second. Let's say he passes. Okay.
Okay.
Let's say he's stealthy. I want to see where this goes.
Yeah.
Like the next step.
Okay. So make my roll. I would make one roll on behalf of all the guards. I won't tell you the result because it's a secret roll, but you've made a character who's been asked to sneak into one of the most secure places in Venice. So I presume you'd have a bit of stealth, and being overlooked is second nature to you. So you've detected 4 people. The 3 people in front of you on the other side of the door have not reacted whatsoever. The guy on the right, or woman, is still moving. They're pacing. And that's all they're doing. You could then, if you're a bit more powerful, let's say that you have a second level spell. Now these spells, the second tier of magic is understanding. So the first tier is just detecting. The second one is beginning to understand the patterns themselves. So you could then perform another spell that would read the thoughts, understand the pattern on the other side.
Wow.
So you could then... So because tricks are universal,
sure,
it's all based on detecting the elements. So if you were fire, you detect fires. If you were, in this case, electricity, you'd be understanding electricity.
Mm-hmm.
Now electricity is split in 2, really. So that there's one for electricity. If you wanted to make a character like Thor from comics and from the original from Norse mythology, you would be lightning. The other side is the mind. Mm-hmm. So you've got detect thoughts. You cast that spell. It's quite a complex spell for a character of your level, and you fail the roll on the 3 in front of you. But on the right-hand side, you can detect thoughts of someone who they're troubled. They have something that they need to do, but they're stumped by something.
Sure.
Now,
Yeah, it seems like with the pacing that was a little bit of good foreshadowing to that as well. It's like you don't, pace around if you don't have some nervousness.
Yeah.
Ken, what do you do?
So as I mentioned before, you can. The tricks aren't usually something that is you do it one round and that's it. You can expand it both temporally and geographically. So do you want to maintain the spell and try and learn more?
Yeah.
Going on.
I think I would.
Or do you
try
want to address the door in front?
I would probably go to the door to the right to see what this woman is about. But would I have to drop the spell in order to do that, or could I maintain it and focus just more on her?
You can focus more on her, and
then like slowly open the door while minding.
Yeah. Or you could stay still and focus on that mind, and then just dig a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I'll dig a little deeper on her then. Okay. Just hanging still.
So, as you're beginning to focus more on the patterns of the thoughts and the thinking and the processes, one of the things that you learn is that this person's waiting for someone. They're waiting for something to be delivered to help them in their task.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what do you want to do? Or if you've got any questions, ask away.
Are these doors locked?
You'd have to check.
But can I check to see if the door that she's in is locked?
Oh, wait. Okay. There is a handle.
There's a handle.
Again. Yep. Turn the handle. Okay. So do you have the spell maintained, or have you stopped the spell to focus on getting into the room, being all stealthy?
I think that's a good question. I think I'm going to. I feel like I've got enough for the moment on her, so I'll drop it and try to easily open it up. Maybe not the stealthiest, just kind of, make the intent like, "Hey, I'm coming in." But more I'm not gonna burst through the door. I'm gonna just open it slowly and peek in the door to see if she's friendly or not.
All right. Okay. Door creaks ever so slightly. As you open the first thing you notice is as soon as you open the door, you can hear the tap tap tap, the plodding footsteps. They're quite heavy. It's not a woman. It's a man. And as soon as the door starts to crack open, the walking stops, and the first thing the person says is, "Do you not knock, for heaven's sake?"
No, but I think you're waiting for something, and
Well, I would hope I'm waiting for you.
I just need to be. I just wanted to help out.
Come in. Just come in. Don't just wait in the doorway. Come on in.
All right, I'll go in the door.
Okay. Inside the room, several candles lit. There is a brazier on one side. On the opposite side of the room, that's lighting the whole room. You can see in front of you is a studious little man in a robe, almost like a monastic robe. On the table in front of him is a mountain of books on one side and a pile of scraps of paper on the other. When you come in, you notice that he's looking at your hands.
Just me. I show him my hands. So what do you? I'm here to serve you. I presume this needs to happen right away.
Oh, did Domenico not tell you? Right. go back upstairs, find Domenico, and bring to me. There was a certain document. Gives you the name of the document. Right. So, look, picks up one of the pieces of paper, looks at it, and says, right, take this. They'll know it's from me. So take that to Domenico, remind him that he was supposed to give you names of the document, and bring it to me. Okay?
I got it. Thank you, sir. I'll be right back.
Right.
Sorry about the confusion.
And knock next time.
Yes, knocking next time. And then I shut the door. And then I'll proceed to the middle room.
Okay. What do you do?
And this
You still
time...
have
Go ahead.
You still have a door on your left,
On the left.
which was empty.
Oh yeah, it was
And you
empty.
have the-
I'll go further to the left, and I think that's right. And is there a lock on this door?
No. There's a simple handle. You turn it, and
Can ease it open?
slides open.
Yeah.
And you're hit by a wave of dampness. It smells immediately as though no one's been in this room for a long, long time. It smells bad.
Do I have?
But it's dark.
Do I have any like electricity ability to flicker on some light a little bit? Can I use that?
So, unlike most other magic systems, creation or the altering of an element is high level. So rather than having something where you can create something that's very small, in this system, even creating a spark is quite high level, because you can do a heck of a lot with a spark.
Sure.
And if you're going to make a spark, why not make a lightning bolt, that sort of thing. So
What about like some flint, and maybe I look around for a torch in the main hallway or something?
Yeah, I mean, you're prepared. I would assume that you have some sort of way of creating light. I mean, you wouldn't have used the light coming down, because it might be seen underneath the cracks of the door. So you go into this room, you flint and steel, set up a little torch, or you have a little lantern, and you set it up. So inside this room, it looks like it's been filled with barrels and crates.
Oh, you said barrels. I thought you said bowels. I was like, what?
It's a crate and barrel.
Oh, no.
What sort of
Get out.
cathedral is this? So, so barrels, crates, the wood is rotten.
Oh,
Some have lids that have been prized off and they're leaning against the containers. Others look as though they haven't been opened. Some crates are piled on top of each other.
what's in there? Do I see remnants of my friend Bill's, clothing or decomposed body on the ground there?
Nope. In this room,
Rigor mortis, like,
in this room, you
Go ahead.
after about 5-10 minutes searching around,
Search around the room.
this is their store, but the stores haven't been replenished in a long time, and there are certain things in here that have been left to rot.
Right. All right. Well, I presume there's not anything in here, and I'll leave the room.
Yep.
And then I'm gonna kind of straighten up my clothing and look maybe a little more like I belong. I presume that I don't belong in this place.
Nope.
No,
You will
I
be.
don't
Chances are you'll have visited the cathedral every Sunday, every 2 or 3 times a week as a good religious Catholic.
Yeah.
But down here, no
I
one
don't.
comes down here.
Yeah. Do I think I should look a little more rough for these guys, or just kind of like?
You can't tell at the moment. You just know that there were 3 people.
Yeah.
If you want to cast, you could cast that spell again. Use up some mana.
No, I'm just gonna. I feel like I'm gonna go in the second door, but I'm gonna walk in briskly, like I'm on a mission.
Right.
And just kind of open it up and run in, kind of in a panic. Not aggressive in a panic, but like a little frenetic.
Yeah. So you're there with purpose. Okay. So this would be a social combat roll. So
Yeah.
Social combat, physical combat is all based on you would make a roll and they can apply their defense. So if you're trying to deceive someone,
Yeah.
you would apply their savvy. If you're trying to influence someone, you'd use their empathy and so forth. So you'd
Yeah, I would say it's definitely influence, and I think that sounds appropriate.
So without making the rolls, you'd roll an interaction. So you'd roll your interaction dice pool. It'd either be guile or influence. So the way that you've described it, you're you as a player, you would choose. I would say you could either have guile, deceive, because you are lying.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. Guile.
influence.
Yeah. Deceive is absolutely correct.
Yep. And because what I was going to say is, if your character was more upstanding citizen, you'd say influence, charm.
No, it's probably not me. I'm more the lying to get my.
Right. So they would then apply their savvy against your roll. So you'd roll your dice pool, retain a number of dice. You'd add whatever bonus you have to your deceive, and then they would knock off from that tally.
Would the role playing that I do make give me a benefit or resolve, like if I burst in with an agenda saying, hey, Dominica needs these papers like yesterday, I don't know what you guys are doing down here, I know this job is important, but if I don't get one of you guys to run up there, like, Dominica is going to be pissed.
I would give you +10 for that. So that I know Bill didn't want to go into the system, but at this point, what you're wanting is a high tally. So you roll your dice, keep dice. If you roll a 10, you always keep them, in addition to the dice that you'd retain. Any ones that you roll, you ditch. So say you've got...
are these D10s or D20s?
I think this is
D10s.
a beautiful time to go directly into the mechanics.
Yeah, let's go to the mechanics.
So it sounds like it's a D10 system, and
It is a D10
dice pool system, right? Okay.
Yep.
Interesting mechanic choice. So your stats build your pool. You allocate your stats, and then your skills decide how many of those dice you actually keep when you roll.
Yep. And that
That's
produces So say you rolled a 10, 8, 7, 5, and 2, whatever. You automatically keep the 10. And say you've got guile of, say, 3 again. It's a nice number. You'd keep 3 of the others. So if you've, at this point, you've got a tally of 10, say 25. So you would then add your bonus from your deceive, and now your bonus for your expertises such as deceive, distract, persuade, provoke is equal to the ranks in your skill times the ranks in your expertise.
To break it down a little bit, let's give Ken one stat. What is the stat that he needs to make this roll?
Interaction. Okay,
so what would be a good interaction pool that he has allocated at character creation?
So, character creation, you automatically start off with 1 rank. If you were to have personality as your favored, you could raise it up to 4 quite easily.
Okay, so let's say he has 4 there. Okay.
Okay.
So he's got. It's not 4 dice, right? It's just a 4.
4. So he's got a dice pool of 8.
Dice. Right. He's
Yep.
got 8 dice because you multiply by 2. So he's got 8 dice in his what's it called? Not
That.
personality. Yeah.
In interaction.
Interaction. So Ken, you got 8 dice in your interaction. 8d10. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what is the skill he needs to do this?
So the skill is guile.
What makes sense for what number would he have in guile?
If this is bread and butter, I would suggest 3 because that's as high as you can take it at character creation.
Sure.
So walk us through a roll and how that works.
Okay. So you roll 8 dice.
I did. I used Google Dice.
Oh, really quick, are there successes and such, or are you just taking the numbers off the dice?
I just took the numbers off the dice, but I have all the numbers that I rolled. I see all 8 different numbers.
System-wise, what are you looking for?
System-wise, you want as high as possible. So any 10s you automatically keep.
Oh, nice.
So did you roll any 10s?
I did not.
Okay.
Oh, great! I didn't get one.
Nope. Keeps it simple. So you've got of the 8 dice, pick your highest 3, add them together.
Yeah, add the highest 3 together. Okay, that's 21.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
I did.
So we're also saying that lying, because you mentioned before that your character's a mischievous, devious sort of person.
Sure.
Deceive 3 ranks.
Yeah.
So we've got interaction 4, guile 3, deceive 3. So your tally bonus, whenever you make a deceive roll, is +9 because it's your 3 times 3. So 9 is added to your 21, which gives you a tally of 30.
30. Okay.
So the guards, they're not built for detecting lies.
Yeah.
They would have quite a low savvy. Their job is to guard, to beat people up, not to see through cleverly orchestrated deceptions. So I would say they've got 4, 2 and 2. So I would take 4 off there. So you went from 30 to 26. Now, because you've introduced 2 role-playing aspects, one, you've got a document, and you've mentioned a name, Domenico, which these 3 people know is a real person. You burst in with such purpose, I would give you an extra 10. So you've got a tally of 36.
Okay.
You only take the first number from that, so 36 becomes an outcome of 3, and which is an impressive success. So,
oh wow,
this is a system where it's not a case of you fail or you succeed. There are
Better know
5.
math.
Yes. Yeah, it's a system where there's degrees of success. So if you've got an outcome of 1, it's like half a success. So what you were going to try and do next would suffer a penalty.
Yeah, the thing I was going to try and do next was convince one of the other guards to go in the room next to us and clean it up because it smells like shit.
Oh, yeah, right. So, an outcome of 2 is just a
filth. You guys live in filth.
So, an outcome of 2 is a competent success, but because you got an outcome of 3, it means that you receive a bonus to your next action. You've succeeded so well that what you've just suggested there, you're now instructing them, receives a bonus.
Can I recap really quick, or go on?
Yeah. No, go ahead. Recap.
Okay, so sounds like it's an interesting mechanic. You've got a dice pool. This is built off your stats. Okay.
Yep.
So you get that shitload of dice. It's great because the probability of rolling high on a lot of dice Or I should say, having a lot of dice means you have a lot of probability to roll high. Okay, so you want a lot of dice.
Yeah.
You roll all those dice, but actually you only get to keep whatever number skill you have. I think that's interesting. You're really only ever rolling 3 dice that matter.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's interesting. All right, so then there's a bonus involved, which you accomplish that bonus by whatever your skill is times 3. I think you get into a little math there, but whatever.
Yeah.
So if you get 3, you get a +9. It's pretty easy.
Mhm.
So you have a +3, a +6, or a +9
Yeah.
to your roll. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So boom, you're rolling your dice, D10s. The max you could have is 30 + 9, so 39, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so boom, perfect roll is 39. But you have an extra mechanic, which is any 10 you roll on your dice pool, you keep.
Yeah.
So you actually could have 39 plus 50. You have an 89.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you can just blow it the fuck up. Okay.
Yeah. I've
right,
rolled,
that's
I've rolled
critical
these
roll.
8d10 like 3 times now, or 4 times. I've only rolled
Google that sucks.
110.
Google dice
Yeah,
sucks. You Google dice.
110.
Yeah.
Okay, so now
I
you
got
have
2
your
tens
number.
this time.
Let's say you blow it up, you get some 10s, whatever. Somehow you're at 40. That's your roll. That's how many points you have. Boom, 40.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Now you subtract the opponent's something. What is that?
Yeah. Their defense. It depends on what the attack is. So
It's on the character sheet.
yeah. So if you're using guile against someone, they would use savvy against you. So it's guile versus guile. A liar can spot another liar. That sort of
Now,
idea.
are they rolling or do they just
Nope,
have a stat?
they just-
slight number. Okay.
They just apply that stat. So that stat is worked out exactly the same way as your expertise tally bonus, but it's times 2.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
The balancing, I'm not so concerned with. I'm just looking for the understanding. So, what was their defense?
I put them as really low, so I given them a 4 because they're extras.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's say they were seasoned warriors. They weren't heroes, but they were seasoned warriors. So they're kind of difficult. What would their defense be? A roundabout.
About 18.
Okay, so
Based
18.
on
Okay, so let's say it's 18. So I would do. Ken got 40. I do 40 minus 18. So what is that? 22. Is that right? Okay, so what does that number mean? So I've got the final number. Is there a chart? How do I know what that number means?
Yep. In the core rules, there's like the tables of success.
Okay.
So if you succeed by 1, it's effectively half a success. So you've got the guards believe in you, but if you mess up on the next roll, which is easier to do because you're a slight disadvantage, then your deception will end immediately.
Sure.
2 successes, so effectively if you got 20 on your tally,
Okay.
then that's just a competent success. So
A success is 10. Every 10 is a success.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Keep going.
So that is just a competent success. You're not going to get any bonuses for your next thing that you do. You're not going to receive any detriment. And then for 3, 4, and 5. So, for example, if Ken rolled phenomenally well and he just critted, or he's a character that's so good at lying that he's adding 25 to the tally bonus because he's got 5 and 5.
They're never good at lying. Actually, his characters are always good at lying.
So, if he got a 5, then his next roll would receive like a plus 15 bonus, or
So
depending on the nature of the roll, it's either he's done something that's outstanding that the witnesses who he's rolling against will think, wow, okay. If he was in combat, you'd say, wow, that was a phenomenal strike. You do extra damage, that sort of thing.
It's interesting because it's like a mixture of normal D10 success, White Wolf Onyx Path systems, but that mixed with D100.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
Yep.
And I like how the dice pools, you somehow kept them low, and yet the numbers, and there's not that bloat of a billion and a billion dice. You spend a force point, you double your dice, you triple your dice, but you can still have big numbers. Of course, the concern is there's a lot of math. I know, like, once you get it, it's probably like, oh, you just do this, oh, you do this, oh, you do this. Once your character sheet is done, you know the steps. But there are several steps to getting to an idea, which makes me think that a turn actually takes a while, which is fine. I love that. In my own system, a turn takes like fucking hour and a half, but it doesn't really take that long. But it's fucking long.
I don't think I think it takes less time to do a fight in your system than it does in D&D, which I think is obnoxious. I mean, I don't think a dice rolling fight needs to take a half an hour. But I mean, that's just personal.
Yeah.
John, have you play tested the system much?
Yeah. Play tested. It must have been like between half a year and a year. Group of friends, people I could trust to say, right, this is rubbish, or give constructive criticism. And it's quite the system, thankfully, is deceptive because it looks really rules heavy because you've got to work out number of dice, how many you got to keep. Is it a botch? Is how many critical successes? What are you adding? And then if it's a combat, you got to deduct something from it. But once you get used to this,
I was looking through the player characters that you've created, and it's just like it seems very complicated just to add to that.
Yeah, I mean it's once you get used to the system, it flows quite well because in combat, there's no for speed wise, there's no attack roll, defend roll. It's a case of
it's one.
If you're being attacked and you can defend, you can apply your defense. If you can't, then their tally's not reduced, and you can just roll for that attack, and the outcome is worked out.
Yeah, it's a very interesting mechanic. Which I mean. So one of my very good buddies, I talk about him all the time on here, a guy named Jeff, and published philosopher and all that kind of stuff. And he's very into game system theory. So we go back and forth on this stuff. He knows a lot more games than I do, which I'm sure it sounds like you actually have played a lot more games, and you clearly have DM'd or GM'd a lot. I could tell, like I just put you on the spot and you sent Ken into it, and Ken of course jumped in, and it actually was an interesting thing to listen to. It's an interesting mechanic that I have not seen done that way, which doesn't mean anything. I haven't played a lot of Exalted, which I know is a little bit more rules heavy. There's a bunch of those I haven't played. My interest is in, I guess, a couple questions. One, how long does it take to make a character?
If you're making a mundane character, 20 minutes. But it all comes down to the purpose.
I know it's a difficult question.
Yeah, the purpose of this game is, or if you could say, every creation's a reaction to something. This game is partially reacting to rules light games, disposable games. Now, I don't want to say that is like, if it's not like this.
We're becoming best friends.
No, I don't want to.
No, talk shit, please. Talk shit.
No.
Good.
I don't want to offend games that are well established and they are rules light.
You mean like anything Free League?
Free League?
I like those guys. I like the Free League guys. Morgborg. I like those guys. I bought Death in Space. I supported their Kickstarter. However,
I think John said it before though. I think he said this is about a long-term campaign. This is about delving deep and getting immersive, and and it's not just 1 or 2 sessions on a weeknight, you know, once or twice. This is about drinking beer with your buddies and like going into some heavy, serious role play and immersing yourselves into a world that, you know, it feels good to have knowledge about and intrigue and you know, be creative with the role play.
Yeah, I think I can answer your question before about the agenda of the game. The purpose of this game and the mechanics and the themes and the settings is all about, once you finish the session, you say, see you later, see you next week, or whatever. You're going home, or whatever, and you're feeling, wow, that was fantastic. What am I going to do next? It's not. I don't want it to be a disposable game where you turn up, you play it. That was fun for 4 hours. It's great, and then that's it. You don't need to think about it. If you're watching a TV series, you want to watch it, or you're watching a film, you don't want to watch something for 2 hours and go, yeah, whatever, and then move on. You want to be entertained, not just for the 2 hours. You want to be entertained for days, weeks afterwards. And the purpose of this game is, yes, it's a little bit rules heavy. You could, I mean, I don't think it is. It does appear to be rules heavy, but I want players and narrators to be able to put what they put in and get twice that much back. And I think systems that have something behind them ensures that that's more likely to happen.
Well, there's a buy-in, and there's all these terms. I've got. Do you know a dude named, or of a dude named Ron Edwards?
Ron Edwards.
You look it up. You know, it's not particularly famous or anything, but when I say game system theory, I literally mean like it's like a thing that people, big time geeks, talk about, specifically investigating what a game is. And there's a lot of psychology behind it. Of course, I'm regurgitating information right now, so I don't know the names of some of these things, but there are psychologists and philosophers.
Also, like language games.
Just games. Why are people playing a game is a real question that is investigated, because you have people that sit down around a table and you're like, oh, you're a bunch of geeks, you're a bunch of gamers. But what they're looking for is vastly different a lot of times. And then there's a buy-in to the system, right? What were you saying, Ken?
Is this Ron Edwards that you're talking about?
I don't think so.
Well, it's good that I didn't show it. But I mean,
look up Ron Edwards and then put in The Forge.
The Forge.
Although that's old stuff. I want to say he reviews games. In fact, John, you might. I know you've already released your game, but you might contact him because he actually reviews games and such.
Oh, brilliant!
Yeah, and pretty brutally, actually.
But not as brutal as I do for my own game. I think I'm a revisionist. Every time I look at it, I read it.
I get it. I get
change
it.
That.
But my friend Chad told me once, really good GM, world builder, etc. My first version of this game, called Dreadlore, he was like, dude, just put it out. And I sat on it for 4 or 5 years. I finally did do the Kickstarter, put it out, etc. And he was like, man, if you sit it at home, if you never do anything with it, of course, you're always going to keep, wheedling. So the fact that you've published the game, it's out there, it's on drive-through. I am following you, by the way. That's awesome. And then the next game you make, or the next version, or the whatever, deal with it then. Anyway, the idea with Ron Edwards, it was just investigating what kind of, if you could classify tabletop role-playing games, how would you do it? If you could classify styles of players, like what makes a game good versus, like, for example, do you know anybody that plays GURPS?
Years and years ago, I've played GURPS once or twice.
Right. And I'm not trying to diss GURPS. It's got a bunch of citizens. Can look up GURPS, GURPS. It's a.
It was like a generic universal roleplay system or something like that.
Yeah.
Was that Steve Jackson?
I don't know. But it's one of the most that I know of rules heavy games. I mean, it'll take you 2 hours to make a character, but you have a solid character. You can do anything with it. The thing is, and the mechanic's interesting. It's a D6 game. You're actually rolling low. It kind of has that a little bit more of that AD&D feel of games. The thing is that there's something about the system that just isn't fun. And there's this question of, is that totally subjective? Or is there something to it? Like, why is Texas Hold'em fun? Is it just because you're making money? People will play without money. Why is Monopoly fun? Like, what about the system makes it fun? And that's where you get into that mind space. What is the buy-in to play the system? A lot of people, when they sit down to game, I mean, Ken and I have talked about this several times. I'm like, hey guys, let's do a one shot, or I'm going to start a new campaign. And he's like, dude, I don't want to just, even if making a character is easy in the system, there's so much mental power that goes into creating a new entity, that character, a new story. Yeah. Can we just use one of my old characters and like continue a story?
Yeah.
There's a buy-in, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I've done that where years ago ran a campaign. Someone else was the storyteller, played a character, loved it. Everyone around the table liked all the characters. Took a break. He started a new campaign, and I just said, could I just play this character again? And he said, yeah, go on then. And
you know who it is.
I met an old friend once again, and then just as if I'd never parted ways from him. But yeah, it's
our buddy.
Game.
Go on. Sorry.
I think going back to game theory, there has to be an element of why you're there at the table. I mean, I know players who will play a game to beat the game. They will minimax. And then there were other players who they're not really interested in the system. They've got a passing interest in the story, but they're just there to socialize, because really that's what role playing is. You're just chatting, you're just talking, but the twist is you're not talking as you're talking as someone else in a story, and you're enjoying your successes, or if you're a sarcastic player, you're enjoying the mishaps of your other players, that sort of thing. But I think there's so much options in the market at the moment that no matter what you're looking for, it's out there. And for me, I think there just seems to be such a growing trend of games that are rules light. I know I've mentioned the word disposable, and it's an awful term. But it's a case of you can play the game for 6 weeks, and then you can stop, and it'll have no impact on your life. I know it's a role-play game; it shouldn't really have an impact, but
it should. It takes too much time.
Yeah, but whenever someone asks me, like, what is roleplay? What are you doing? What are you talking about? And I says, well, imagine you're watching a series like Game of Thrones, but you're Tyrion. What would you do in his situation? And if you've got a good narrator, a good storyteller, or whatever, and they can immerse you into a game, that you're there and you have the imagination to back it up, you're in that TV series, except that it's not Game of Thrones, it's the campaign that you're in, and you're playing a character, and your character could die, you could make a decision that has such a profound effect on everyone else around the table or in the setting that you're just thinking, oh shit, what have I done? Or wow, that was amazing. I mean, Middle Earth roleplay game, MERP. I remember I made one character who he died. He sacrificed himself on the battlefield, and that was the best character death I've ever felt. Just knowing that he was only ever there to be sacrificed to do something. So.
Ken just so I ran a one shot in this system that I just created called Cursed, and it's in playtest and all that stuff. We'd love to have you on, by the way.
Oh, absolutely.
We're doing a live stream for the playtest.
Timing?
It's going to be January 20th is the proposed date. I think is that a Thursday? Or is it a Monday?
It's not. It's a Monday. It's during our normal gaming time. Monday seems to be
Although technically, I mean, wherever the players are is what we're going to do.
Yeah,
but
we might have to move the game if we can't get anybody for Mondays.
We would love to have you on. It's a mini campaign. I'm going to throw it in the plug really quick. Okay. Mini campaign. There'll be a session 0, 2 hours, make characters, know the world. Then 4 to 5 sessions, done. And it's you run through this adventure that I've made. Swords and sorcery is, think Conan. It's in the world of Craster. You'll understand all of it. And, it's this sort of heroic thing that everybody's doing. But it's in the system called Cursed. And there's a different feel with that system. I want to see how it plays out. So if you're available, I'd love you on there.
I think on Discord, when I was looking at the times, because it starts like 8 o'clock your time, or 7 o'clock your, that's about 2 o'clock in the morning for me.
It's an early morning.
Well, so, we would have to do it earlier than that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
we would make it happen, man. Because I mean, solid. So one of the things is, this is a little bit of a topic switch, but we live stream a lot of games. And in fact, I want to say one of the ways that you and I, John, kind of got in touch with each other was it over Discord server? What was it exactly?
Yeah, it was Random Worlds.
Random Worlds.
Brilliant server.
Those, I think you've been on it a lot longer than I have. I sort of happened into it.
Yeah.
And Ken and I have live streamed for the last year. Really good group of players. But it's more like, hey, we're all friends and we game. And we're interested in now doing a show where it's like, hey, look, it's not just us gaming and there's a camera. It's we want people to actually enjoy watching it. So there's a little bit of a different switch, turn there. And so you have to have people that have that buy-in. I was like, hey, buddies, we're playing this game already. I'm live streaming it. And they're like, cool. That's their buy-in, just to have fun. We're trying to do something that's like, hey, let's do a little bit of a show. And I think people that really get into that immersion, that mind space of what's in the game, that's very interesting. So
no, if I'm available, definitely up
if
for
you're
it.
available, we'll discuss it. And afterwards we can maybe you could run something in the Linen Tapestry and all that stuff.
I would definitely be interested in playing the game, and that's part of the reason why I we're talking about player knowledge and what kind of investment player needs to really get into the game. And I think Bill and I have had this conversation quite a bit. Like, if your players aren't investing into the story and investing into the characters, that I think it puts too much, like it takes away from the story a little bit, because they don't know where they are, who they are, why they are. And I think that creating a world where players can delve deeply and know who's around and add to the story, because I think that gives people something to role play off of a little bit, and
Yeah.
So, Ken, I sent you a link. It's a crappy website. Not to diss the Forge or anything, but their website's shit. I mean, it's done like 2002 or something.
Yeah.
But it's got a whole bunch of terms, and I like language, I like terms, but I can actually send it to you as well, John, if you're interested in seeing it. Give me a second.
Yeah, sure.
I'm just promoting the hell out of Ron Edwards. But I mean, the dude, I don't know. I know he wasn't the first, but it's a very Socratic sort of fight that went on. Interesting to dig into, actually. So there's all these terms that they attempted to define. Why? So that we can actually talk about it. For example, authority is one that I think is really interesting. It's in part 2, the terms list. The privilege given to a person, process, or written material to establish anything into the shared imaginary space. A controversial topic. See also credibility. So when I say agenda, I'm talking about something very specific. When I say buy-in, I mean something specific. And not to sound hoity-toity and like a fuck, but it's just using terms that say, hey, look, when I say narrative, because every gamer's like, oh yeah, dude, I'm totally about the narrative. I'm all about the story and the fiction. And then you watch them play, and they're not. They're not about the story. They're about maybe what their character, they're like, oh, I'm a time mage. And so all they're trying to do the entire game is make some time shit happen. Is this one little combination. And if they can pull that off, that's the entire purpose, which is fine. That's fine. But that's their agenda. And if you're running a game, or more importantly, if you have a system that has a certain agenda, imagine we're all playing Texas Hold'em, and my agenda is not to make money.
You fold.
Yeah.
You guys could have really liked playing with me. You know what I'm saying?
I've never thought of it like that, as a system to have an agenda. I mean, I think the closest thing I've had is a magic system where there's no list of fixed spells. You, as the player and the narrator, you create your own spells. So you choose who the target is, you choose the parameters, you choose the trick, and then on top of that, you add the cosmetic. What does it look like? Because in the system, I mean, to be fair, the system's so deep that you've got mana pools. You've got the mana pool for each realm. So if you use, if you're in
those on the sample,
if you're in the mundane realm and you use mundane mana, it looks normal. But if you're in Otherworld and you use mundane mana, they're two completely different realms. The realm of Otherworld is the realm of infinite possibility. The mundane is just that. So if you perform a spell in Otherworld using mundane, the spell will look boring in a world that's filled with magic. And it's that cosmetic level as well, so that you build the mechanics, you tell me what it looks like, so that when you cast your spell that you've been working on, you want to make that spell look as cool as possible, go ahead. If you want to make it look as subtle and it slips by everyone, you can do it like that as well. I think really that was my prime agenda in the system, was to create something that you as the player, you're the source of the imagination to create something, rather than going, I'll have that spell list, and I'll have that from that, and that's it. So,
yeah.
I think that it takes a little bit away, like, from the trouble that the narrator or storyteller has they feel the weight of having to entertain everybody for hours on end. If you can give some weight back to players, it makes it more enjoyable for everyone because, Bill at the end of the session, he's like, I've been talking for 3 hours. I don't want to talk anymore. I'm done. And it's like, let's even out some of, and if you can get people talking to each other in character, and I think that is the gravy on the cake.
That's the mark of a good narrator or a storyteller or a GM or whatever, is them only talking half or even a third or a fifth of the time and let the players take over.
GM. I'm a terrible GM.
That's the dream.
But
Right. So there's an argument. Does the system matter? This is actually something that is considered in the Forge, and I am on one camp. Does the system matter? A lot of people, especially maybe not rules light people, I don't want to just categorize them, but because I think that has more to do with people being a little bit older, having kids and jobs, which is why they want rules light. Although I think that's a faulty argument regardless. Some people say, okay, I have run a D20 game, D&D game, and long-standing campaign. Everyone shows up. Ran it at a game shop. I'm actually calling out one of my buddies, Dallimore, who's been on GGP. Epic game. He created the whole world. Just used the D&D system. I think 5th edition. People were weeping at points. People were freaking out, saying, I got to take a break at points. Deep set emotions. And they're using D&D as a system.
That's one hell of a narrator.
Hell of a narrator. This guy, Dallimore, he's solid. It's interesting you say that, John. Why do you say that?
Is going back to the original question, does the system matter? The first answer that comes to mind is, if you haven't asked the question, it means the system's not very good. If it doesn't stand out, then it's not contributing to anything. And if you're going to make something, it has to have an agenda, a purpose. It needs to fulfill a role in the game. Because if it's a generic system, and I mean really generic system, then...
Like GURPS, for example. It is literally generic.
Then it takes a good GM to turn that vagueness to an advantage. That's why if you can take a generic system like D&D, which me personally, I've never liked D&D. I think it's quite a simple system with no depth, but I still play it. I still enjoy running it.
Did you like 3rd edition?
I've played
Pathfinder.
AD&D. Oh, Pathfinder. Yeah, Pathfinder.
I could see you getting into...
I don't think I played 4th edition. Was that the one where it was like models based?
There actually isn't a 4th edition. That didn't happen. Okay.
That's just been written out of history.
Ken and my buddy Mildra and Xanatrix Zadere will yell at us for that. But yeah, there is no... They just skipped 4. It's kind of like Windows. They went from like 3.1 to 95.
Nice.
98. Bam. There you go. They just skipped. I
think, again, it comes down to what you want from the game, from the 4 or 5 hours that you're going to play.
Right.
If you just want to do cool things, is the system that relevant? If it's all going to be, I'm just going to do this, can I do it? Yeah, okay. And it's rules light. And that's what people are there for. Brilliant. That's great. But I think there's going to be a time where the system's going to be tested by time itself, and people are just going to say, I'm a bit bored of that, want to move on to something else.
It's interesting. Go on, please.
And that's why some systems I imagine being disposable, because you'll play it, you'll buy the book, you play it for a bit, think, oh, that was great, fantastic, and then I don't know, 6 months later, you move on to something else, and you'll never look at that game again. But then the same happens to the classics, where games like Cthulhu, amazing game. I'll probably never ever get to play that game again, but it's what a game.
I have been wanting to play or running to run a I want to say I can't remember which version it is. I don't know what version they're on. It's the newer D100 version of Call of Cthulhu. And I played it. Actually, Jeff ran it. The dude I was talking about, that philosopher guy. And such a cool system. I mean, it's brutal. And my entire point is this. I'm of the camp that the system does matter. If you want a horror game where the odds are against you, you're likely going to die or go insane. Call of Cthulhu, D100. And everyone has the same buy-in. Because when you make that game, when you make your character, you know there is no way that you're going to shoot Cthulhu in the face. You're not going to do it. It's not even a question. But that's part of the fun. Like, it's got that old school feel of how do you get the treasure in the dungeon and avoid the monsters? How do you use your cunning as a player to do that? The thing is, running a long-standing Call of Cthulhu game, that's not really what the system's for. Can it be done? Yes, sure. I'm sure you're a very good GM, I can already tell. I bet I could give the Monopoly rules to you, and you could run a fucking game with the Monopoly rules. So yeah, if you got a GM who knows what they're doing, you just give them some rules. But the system isn't made for that. That's really where I'm coming in. It seems like your system is made for a long game, for people to really be immersed, invested, and so they're going to take the time to know the rules.
Yeah. And I was thinking about this earlier on, as you do before you go on a podcast. I think, oh well, what things could I be asked? And then it kind of dawned on me that the game itself. I'm trying to think of a way to put this. The system is there to help you realize what you want to realize. So if you got a system where to every rules light, and you as a player, you want to do all these, you want to do all these amazing things, but the system is so simple that you just roll a d6, and if you roll a 5, you succeed, and that's it. There's no scope for you as a player to be the character that you want to be. So it's good to have a system where, it looks like there's a gazillion skills on your sheet, but you don't have to choose all of them. But because there's options, you can choose those ones and then go, right, I want to focus on this, this, and this. And the person next to you will have the same choices, same long list of possibilities, and they'll go for something completely different.
So there's sort of a meta here. As in the gameplay, how much of the system is exposed versus how much is under the hood. If you have a very, very good rules light system, it's all under the hood. And that frees the players to play. That's the goal. I think it's rarely achieved. If you got a mechanics, sort of like a crunchy system, the idea is you have all these rules that are exposed. And so if Ken wants to be good at guile, he's got to put the points into guile. And so he, as a player, is investing in his character mechanically.
Yeah.
And so in the game, he's like, oh, I'm good at guile. See these mechanics? Therefore, I'm going to do certain things as a character. So there's this meta aspect to it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's an argument. It's an argument. So, for example, Ken is a filmmaker, okay? So he knows all about story and directing and all these things. Talking about just story, talking about the fiction, which is what we're immersing ourselves in, right? Because without story, who cares about the mechanics? Ken, you've seen the movie Aliens, correct?
Yeah. They're going to come, man. It's game over.
Game over, man.
They're in
Game
the
over, man.
walls.
You're in the walls, man. So this is
What's
an
the-
aside. I'm sorry. There's a
Yeah.
complete aside here. There's a rules light system I just played with Jeff and the sort of crew that I'm with called Mothership. John, I suggest you check out Mothership. It's
Okay.
Mother Aliens. It's Alien is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's rules light. I think you would dig it. Regardless.
They mostly come
So-
at night. Mostly.
Jesus Christ. So Aliens. Ken, let's say you're directing that movie. Let's say there's the point in the script where Ellen Ripley, her character, okay, from Alien,
Mm-hmm.
she is a badass because she does what she needs to do, but she is not a Marine. She's like a lieutenant. She's like a middle management person,
Mm-hmm.
right? She
Yeah.
just has grit. Now
Right.
in Aliens, there's a point where she has the dude who played in Terminator as John Connor's dad, Kyle Reese. I forget the actor's name. Anyway, she has him teach her how to use the gun. The big fucking gun. And that
Yeah.
foreshadows her going down with Newt
Sure.
and having the one-on-one with the Queen Alien. Because without that scene, it doesn't make any sense. Okay,
Yeah.
you're running the game here. Here's the question. How does the player go from playing Ellen Ripley to that scene? How does she gain that ability? What makes sense? You can do that in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. I think
That's where I'm going.
so. Again, the system's quite deep. A lot of games have like a fate system where there's an extra mechanic where you can give yourself a bit of a boost.
Yep.
So in this game, Linen Tapestry, you've got something called your spirit. Spirit pool, and you've got 3 spirits. I should know these, but I forget. Conscience,
I get it.
conviction,
So many
honor.
versions.
Say it one more time.
So you got conscience, conviction, and honor. So you have moral codes. If you've got high ranks in spirit, you've got there you go. Yeah. You've got what was I going to say? Yeah, you've got moral codes. So if you went for a character that has strong spirit, you could say Ripley. She's got a hell of a conscience because of Newt. So she could say, right, she's got 4 ranks in conscience, which means that she's got a substitute dice pool of 8. And as Ken didn't demonstrate before, rolling lots of dice could give you lots of 10s. So Ripley, when it comes to saving Newt, she says, I have to save this person. Normally my control, which is what you'd use for aim, is 2, 3, 4. It's not very high because, as you say, I'm middle management. I'm not a Marine. And so when it comes to the crunch, she will roll 8 dice.
I only rolled 110 again, but I did really. It rolled high.
So as long as Ripley doesn't use Google Dice, she'll be all right. So that's one way around it.
This is
So-
long before Google.
But yeah, in that scenario, she would be a character. The player behind Ripley will be someone who says, "Right, I'm just gonna create a really high-spirited character, and I'm going to blitz my pool. So every time you use that ability, you lose a spirit point, and once that pool is empty, you can't do any more substitutions.
So that's how you accomplish it with the system. So, Ken, let's say that you're directing that movie, and you see it in the script. Let's say you didn't write the script, you know. How do you, as a director, as a storyteller, figure out how she makes that transformation?
Well, I think you kind of explained the story that she asked the Marine like how to do this, and they kind of go over it. But I think, you know, hopefully there's a scene or two where you can show her practicing a little bit later on, like in the background somewhere. You kind of see her fiddling around with a gun. It's like she doesn't go directly from like, I don't know how to use this, to like Arnold Schwarzeneggering the whole platoon over there.
Why?
Because, you know, it adds to the character building knowledge. You know, it gives her some history with that. Maybe she uses it once and fails. Like she shoots at something, misses the subject entirely, and there are holes through the whole entire system, and one of the other Marines says, "Hey, you can't, you don't pull the trigger, you squeeze it." You know.
So while I understand that, I'm going to be a little pedantic here. Why? Why is it necessary?
Because we don't believe
juices.
We don't believe that she can do these amazing feats without having experience, because clearly she wasn't experienced in the beginning, and I would imagine that's probably potentially somewhere. But at the same time, Magic of Hollywood, you know.
So this is where I'm getting. This is where I'm going. This is where I'm going with the buy-in. So people love superheroes. Like we've always idolized. We have superheroes that can just, they awaken, they go Super Saiyan, and they can do shit. Okay, fine. But in the seminal moment, when a non-superhero makes the heroic choice, now let's put this into a tabletop role-playing game where there are mechanics involved. A lot of people will say, well, right, the book says at level 3, I can fly. I mean, you guys see me fly. But the book has nothing to do with the story. You see? So, for example, in the example with Aliens and Ken, the plot requires Ripley to know how to use a machine gun and a flamethrower. She's got to do it. That's part of the script. It's in the plot. But the story doesn't demand that. If it doesn't, then you get this weird plot hole. And I think that same thing happens in a lot of game systems, where it's like, okay, well, I'm going to spend a point of I do it or whatever, and now my character can just, as a player, I am trained now to think, okay, it's not really about the story and the story making sense. It's about what can I do on this sheet to accomplish my goal. That's where I'm going with this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, someone who's playing the game to play the game rather than to contribute to a story. Yeah, like that's just like, is it metagaming? Is that the term? Where you just...
Is it metagaming though? Because, you know, it's like when you're playing like Street Fighter 2 and someone just always sweeps you and Hadoukens you. It's part of the game. It's cheap,
but there's no story to
but they win the game.
Tekken. Yeah, but there's no story involved. So you're either playing
the cinematic.
Right. Well, no, but I can see where you're coming from.
Like you can't
But
get blood from a stone, is what I'm trying to say. So this is my question for you and your system.
Yeah.
What's the agenda?
Is no agenda an answer? Because it's just a system that to give players a wide scope of what they want. If they've got a character in mind, if my system succeeds, it'll succeed by allowing any player to create the character that they want to create. So that if you play in a system where it's class-based and the character you've got in mind is, well, he's a little bit weird, he's a little bit whoosh, he's got this and he's got that, he's got a bit of magic, but he's also a fighter, but he wants to develop the fighter, but he's got a bit of sneak. You can't do it in the class system. But that character could exist. It just means he's a bit of a jack of all trades, and as all his stats are quite low and spread out.
And so the system's going to punish him for that.
Yep. But the system allows you to do that. So if there is an agenda, it would be to let the player create the character that they want to play without restriction, other than things that defy the setting, such as, I want to create a red hand that messes around with time. So interference with time is just not a possibility. It's not in the setting. It can't happen. Move on. That sort of thing.
So there are limitations.
But that limitation's based on the setting, not the mechanics. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Ken, I've been going pretty strong. You got.
I think it's really interesting, the story. I mean, I think I've said this a couple of times throughout it's good to have reasons and goals for players. I think if they know the setting and if they know and have a vested interest, it makes gameplay a lot more fun. And I think you supply quite a bit of lore to allow for that. When you're doing this, because I know that the Legends of Venice brochure that I have, that book, and we've been showing images of it on there. It shares a lot of character and their abilities and stats and such. Are there sections that players should not read in this if they're going to be players? I mean, do you give them kind of like some blinders in order to and would this be, if like, are there different books for players and different books for game masters?
So the original core rules had everything, and I think my mistake was creating one book that contains everything, because in the end it was, I don't know, I'm always self-critical, quite dry because there's so much in there. So if you go back to that last picture, with artist by the name of Ralph Damiani, I feel like I've got to shout him out because he's a phenomenal artist.
Oh yeah, it's great.
I stumbled upon him through a YouTuber called Stephen Gibb, an amazing YouTuber who does Lord of the Rings lore, and he's like a professor. He's just brilliant. I once said that some Lord of the Rings is like your A levels, or I'm not sure what the equivalent in America would be, but Stephen Gibb, his is the doctorate. His is the professor, the level, and he used Ralph Damiani for his artwork. So when I asked Stephen, can you recommend an artist, he put me through to Ralph, and the level of artwork that's Ralph is put through, it's brilliant. It's EN on the end. So there you go. Yeah. So what was I saying? He put me through to Ralph, and Ralph's just an amazing artist, and it meant that his style is now the style of the Legends of Venice. It's now the style of any book that I do. So as part of the Kickstarter, I want to relaunch the core rules and split it into two. One for the players, one for the narrator. So that players can...
It's good too, because I know what's the size, what's the dimensions of your book?
So Legends of Venice is 155 pages long. The original rules was 350.
Oh, okay. Did you combine them to 419? Because
No. Actually, no, it might be 419. So so the original rules I'll call the Grayskin edition because it's.
But I mean, what are the dimensions of the actual book?
Oh,
like length, width.
8.5 inch by 11. It's like the standard.
Oh, it's a standard.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's Haas. That's pretty easily what 350,000 words, 400,000 words.
God knows.
Yeah. It's about if it's that size, I'd say easily 350,000. A D&D book is 300,000 words, about that size, about 300 pages. Which means, by the way, for anyone listening, to play D&D, you need 3 books. It means it's 1 million words. That is not an easy system. Just so people know. Anyway,
but the Monsters Manual, where it's just people, you don't really have to read that. You just roll some dice to see what monsters you need.
But if you're so here's the thing. Oh my God, you're setting me off. Here's the thing. Yes, now, because everybody knows what an elf is and a dwarf is and an orc is, right? And a dragon is, and the system is so inculcated. That's right, inculcated into our brains. It's literally how we think about everything.
Yeah.
But if you do the due diligence of being fair and playing the game, you got to have that book. Because you can't just, like, if I was going to run Legends of Venice, I wouldn't just make up bad guys. I don't know the rules.
Yeah.
I don't know the bad guys, right?
Yeah.
Like, if there's a bad guy book and I'm like, nah, I'm just going to make up these. No, I'm going to play the system, which means you need that book.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Here's the little squirrely thing with D20 and Hasbro. Yeah, they sell you the DMG, and there's like 10 pages that are worthwhile to read. Because nobody reads that book. You already know how to play. Anyway, I'm done. Diatribe. Finished.
It's not just me who doesn't like D&D then.
I love D&D, dude. But I don't like that it usurps everything. When I made the system, I'm interested if you got this too. I jumped on, what is it? Yeah, Random Worlds. That's literally where I was at first. The GM Gumshoe. I forget that guy's name.
Dan's brilliant. He's just
amazing. He's brilliant.
Yeah.
He was like, hey, do this thing. By the way, anybody go to Random Worlds. It's on Discord. Dan the Gumshoe DM. He's a very cool guy. Does a lot of really cool stuff.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
Yeah. Throw him some bones. Anyway, when I was on the little chat, because it's a text-based chat, I'm sure you've done, and you get the Q&A. Real interesting, but I had some people on there that were brutal, which was great, but they were brutal. And they were like, look, so you've written the system, original world, right, John? Original world, original system. You can, it sounds like while it has a setting, you could be setting agnostic. You could roll it with a different setting if you wanted. Why don't I just play D&D? That was the question.
Yeah.
So there's 5th edition. Why not just play D&D? I know it. I don't have to read anything. I can do everything you just said. Why would I ever play a different game? And that is what that obtuse, stupid question. That's a stupid question.
There is no answer to that.
I don't. Question.
There shouldn't be an answer to that question. The only answer to that question should be silence and let them reflect on what they've just said.
Yeah, it's just like I get how easy of a question it is, but it's like so. I mean, I drink this, so why would you drink anything else?
Yeah.
Are you a fucking tool end? You bell end? What the hell's wrong with you?
Why have
Because-
a hobby that involves using your imagination and exploring different things and different scenarios
Right.
when you're just gonna do the
We've always
opposite
done
and
it.
use this? Yeah.
It's where
Yeah,
we've
yeah.
always done it. It's like, okay, so are you illiterate? Because I know you didn't fucking read the book. Nobody read the D&D book. You learned from your friends. Someone could fight me on that. You can fight me on that.
No,
Nobody
there's-
read that
there's-
fucking book.
There's always one person who has read the book from back to front to back, and they know every single rule, and you'll just say, "Okay, what's the rule say?" And they'll say, "Yep,
Right.
I know the answer," and think, "Right,
You
fair
rules
enough. I don't
liar.
need to."
You
Yeah.
do need a rules liar. You do need a rules
You
liar.
do. I mean,
For in our group, it's our buddy Drizzle. He's like, hold on a second, you know. And then if it's alchemy, it's Ken, because he is the only person who's actually dug into the rules and been like, wait a minute, it says it right here. Yeah. Anyway, I'm waxing
it's
poetic.
interesting, but I mean, I think that it does, you know, for your game specifically, the Linen Tapestry. Does a player need to? What does a player need to know? I mean, if you have a good game master, if you have a good storyteller, what do they need to know going in? Do they need to have some history of the background? You said they should read the introduction and the first couple of pages to see where the world is. But I mean, really, can the storyteller explain that part to them as well? I mean, do they need to know anything?
I think imagining the scenario where you got a group of mates, one of them's the narrator, and he suggests, right, I've got this new book, I've got this new game I want to play.
Yeah.
He'll have hopefully, if the Kickstarter goes well, I hit the stretch goals and I can get the artwork and get it done. There'll be 3 books in this setting. There'll be the Severed Souls, which will be for the players, how to create the character, develop the character, create the spells, that sort of thing. So the players will need to read that. The 3 Realms, which is for the narrator only, because that's the settings where they want to play the game across the 3 realms. And then obviously Legends of Venice, which if you want to make a character from Venice, it's best to read it. If you don't, and you would just want to start off completely blind to not just the setting, but the game, just turn up for whatever reason, and you can just play
the Spaniard.
Who's just drifted in. He was on the run. He's had to find somewhere to hide.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. I'm out.
Yep. Just get the rack ready, and then you sort it. So for the players, the Severed Souls book, to give them an idea of if they're starting off as a mundane, still need to know how the system works, how to make the character. If they're going to start off as a red hand, they'll need to know how the spell system works, combat works, avatar. But when it comes to the settings, if you want to play a game in Shadowlands or Otherworld and the Dominions, that's for the narrator to know, and that'll be the 3 Realms book.
So this is we've been showing the Venice book. There are this is a setting. Those other books that you're talking about are different settings as well, I take it.
No, they're just like the core rules. So the original core rules was 1 book, and what I'm doing is I'm just splitting that book into 2, expanding each book, condensing the rules, which is why I would love an opportunity to play test with you guys so that I can play test the new rules, see how we can improve, see where I'm going right. And then, but at the moment, there is just the core rules that's available at drive-through.
So if we wanted to, like, for instance, we're all in Venice, we got our characters kind of built, and we wanted to establish like a mercantile trade with Egypt or something, or explore the Mediterranean and go invade Greece. Is that a possibility, or do we need to stick near? Is it a sandbox game?
No. There's 2 geography chapters. So one chapter or one sub-chapter under geography is just for Venice.
Yeah.
All the Sestieri, the rivers, that sort of thing. And then the second chapter is the Mediterranean. So there's a section on King of Hungary. There's a section on Croatia, Papal State. So it's not just, as you say, a sandbox in Venice. This is a game where you can travel across the land that has involvement with Venice, and Venice is becoming an empire at this point, which is one of the themes of the game. So if you wanted to go to Crete, Cyprus, get involved in the politics there, go ahead.
And then by 1492, because this takes place in the 1500s, is that correct?
It's 1400s.
1400.
So the story starts in the 1400.
Yeah.
And then the first story happens in 1402. And then there's a few pages that describes possible stories that spans true history of the next 100 years. So if you wanted to play a chronicle, you've got little pockets of stories or weaves that you can play through, and that'll take you up to 1500s. So it's not just a snapshot of 1 year in one city. That's just the center. That's just the starting point.
Have you been to Venice?
Yes. Yeah. Went with my wife many years ago, and would love to go back. Just Venice is just amazing. It's a beautiful place.
Isn't it pretty easy to get to Venice from where you are? I mean, just to jump on a train or something and head down.
Yeah, it might take like a couple of days. But
I mean, it seems like it's all kind of over there.
Yeah, but
Ken has the same thing it's kind of a trope that we're blessedly American about everything.
Well, they got fast trains. I mean, I feel like they have faster trains than we have. I mean, maybe a lot of stops. And it's like going from New York to Florida or something. It's not like
you've never been to England. We don't have fast trains.
Oh, you don't? I mean, and then I do have my best mate, one of my best mates growing up, because I know that's what you say to your friends in England. He introduced me to drum and bass, but also he scared the shit out of me because he drove on the wrong side of the road. Here, whether or not, because he was used to driving on, and he said he sold vacuum cleaners when he was in high school, and one of the scariest things was driving down all the little back roads in England, because there's no like little white line or anything. You're just kind of in.
It's like country roads.
Yeah, they're like country roads.
They're windy. I mean, it's so different. It's so different for. I was in England for a short time. I mentioned my buddy Waka, who was awesome. Derbyshire lad, and he drove, obviously, and that dude, like, there were so many. The traffic is so different. Have you been to the U.S., John?
Yep. Yeah.
Where were you in the U.S.?
I've been to New York and Detroit.
Oh,
sure.
Wow,
Detroit. Very different.
Wow.
Yeah,
very different place.
What I liked about Detroit was the weird. You can't turn right. You've got to drive on past the junction, then loop around, and then go the direction. So you never cross traffic.
It's called flipping.
It's called what? Flipping a bitch, right?
Turn left. You can't turn left.
You turn.
That's it, right? Yeah. I mean, we went to Canada.
You can always turn right. You can always turn right. Yeah.
Turn right. Went to Canada and just watching a house drive past on the back of a lorry.
Yeah.
It's something you'll never see in England. So.
No
about
mobile
Canada?
houses.
Yeah, they're unruly savages up there.
Yeah, well, that in Kentucky, that's where I'm at,
That's where
and we see houses drive down the road all the time. That's
Yeah, but they're not on
common.
wheels. They're just rolling down the mountain.
They're on
Mudslide.
wheels. They get these houses where they'll travel two of them. They call it a double wide, where they've got
That's the old
one
double wide, baby.
in the first truck, and then there's a second truck with the other half on it, and then they kind of merge the two together, and they'll shut down a whole freeway.
But
Yeah,
have you
great.
been in a double wide before?
Oh yeah, I have. Yes,
Dude, if it's a proper like setup,
it's big.
a double wide, you can't tell. Like there's something odd. You can kind of be like, "What's up?" And then someone's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, this is a trailer." Like, holy shit! But like it's like a detached house. It's
Yeah.
pretty wild.
And they put cement cinder blocks underneath to make it look like it's not just
Then a tornado comes and takes you out.
and then
Yeah,
takes it
it just-
away. I mean, it's not the most. The
Or you make
infrastructure
meth
is-
inside if you're from Kentucky.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Infrastructure of those things, they're relatively aerodynamic. I mean, at 150 miles an hour, you want to have an underground area to go to if you live in a double wide.
That's right. You dig a ditch, baby.
Dig a ditch.
So you dig a ditch and then you put a house on top of it.
No, you just
And that's
park
your-
that bitch. Put
you just
down a
park the
skirt and rock
house.
and roll. Hook up the old septic tank and act
Yeah.
like it's a home. And
Yeah.
it is. It is.
It is.
Honestly, that's the thing is like you can have a really nice place, like big land, all kinds of
Sure.
stuff. It just doesn't have a foundation,
Yeah.
you know, and hopefully you're not in tornado territory.
Yeah.
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 So you went to Detroit. I understand New York. Why'd you head up to Detroit?
Friend, just meeting up with a friend.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. I think the film 8 Miles came out like a year or two later. So when they were
Okay.
talking about 8 Mile, and obviously each section is
2008? Is that right?
8 Mile. Yeah, so like
2008.
Eminem.
each Eminem, yeah. So when they were talking about it's 8 Mile, I kind of understood that that was how far away they are from the center, because it's in
you're
sections
watching-
of 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 mile.
You're watching Eminem like go through the shit that he goes through in the movie, and you're like, "Hey, I want to go to that place."
No,
I mean,
no,
I
I,
like
went there
Detroit.
beforehand.
2002, by the way. My bad.
Yeah.
Oh God! Wow.
Yeah. So you went pre 9/11.
But just before, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So you saw? Did you go up in the towers in New York?
No, I didn't
What's
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, actually, no. It must have been after. It must have been after. See, at my age,
2002 was
I
after.
struggle with years.
It was 1 year
So-
after.
Yeah.
Really? That's when you visited? Or no, you're talking about 8 Mile.
I thought you said 2002 was
Yeah, 2002 is 8 Mile. The release.
is 8 Mile, so
Yeah.
it would have to be
Yeah.
out
I-
after.
I went
Yeah, it must
to
have been.
New York once. I was there in 2000. And for real, we were sitting there. We looked at the Twin Towers and we were like, we should go in. And someone was like, we'll just hit it next time.
Oh, yeah. I
And
had
I
the
mean, just go on. Sorry.
same experience. I went in 2000, and I was like, I should go there, and I
You were
didn't.
that tall guy across the street. I knew it.
That was me.
I knew it. I knew it. John, I know this is completely not dealing with gaming.
No, that's
but
fine.
How tall are you?
How tall am I? Oh,
Yeah.
5'11".
5'11".
Yeah.
Everybody's taller than me. Sable Tone Tanvi, who's a subscriber, says MB, that's what I need. What is MB? I don't know what that means. Sableton, sorry, I just saw your deal. Yo. Sableton. What's an MB?
MB.
I gave him a
MB,
smiley
like
face.
DJ MB. He's a DJ and drum and bass DJ in England.
Really? Oh.
Yeah. Spelled EMBE.
Maybe. Oh my
E.
God. I'm sorry, Sableton. I'm 1,000 years old. I don't know. I don't know lead speak. I'm sorry, dude. Maybe that's what I need. Oh, D&D. Meh. He's responding to DJ No Fly, right?
Oh,
Sableton, do you play D&D, and do you have any questions for John, who's created a whole world and this new tabletop role-playing game? And he's going to be doing a Kickstarter for the next 2 books, the player book and the GM book.
Yeah.
You got any questions for him? He says, no, it was about portable house. Don't worry. He's talking about that. Well, regardless, if you got questions for him about the system,
Please,
definitely
yeah.
ask.
Any questions?
Yeah. So speaking of, John, this new Kickstarter that you're gearing up to do, can you tell us about it?
Hopefully next month or 2, Kickstarter campaign for the Legends of Venice. There will be stretch goals. The first stretch goal will be like a little adventure module where there's 2 stories called the Twin Vipers, and they follow on from the introductory story. That's the first stretch goal. The second and third stretch goals is, as I mentioned before, where I relaunch the core rules. So the first one is the Severed Souls, which is the player's handbook, if you want to call it anything. And the third one is the 3 Realms, which is the expanded setting. So it gives narrators an idea of if they want to play a high fantasy game, they can put it into other worlds. If they want to play a game where they're treading through the dead memories of generations, and
Cool.
that's in the Shadowlands. So it's just, again, you could just call that the DM book. So they're the main stretch goals. But I would, there's so many. I mean, once I've done this, I've got a setting book in mind, which is the memories of Patatavium, which brings players into ancient Rome, where all those whose dreams failed, like Aeneas is in there, She-Wolf, who in those settings is the one who led Romulus to build his dream of Rome. That's another expansion book I want to do. So that one for Shadowlands. I mean, if this Kickstarter is successful, I won't be just revising the rules. I'll just keep writing books.
Very cool.
There's so many settings, so many realms, so many dominions. I just want to give players the opportunity to just explore.
Sableton asks, how many copies of this kind of game would you hope to sell?
Oh God, lots really. I'm not expecting to sell hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, but if I do, that'll be fantastic. I'm also writing novels, which is linked to the setting, so I'm not. Hopefully, if this is a success, I'll sell a few hundred, hit the stretch goals, go to the novels, release or publish 1 or 2 which ties in with the game, go back to the Linen Tapestry Roleplay Game, and just hopefully see it organically grow. So word of mouth, you read the novels, get introduced to the roleplay game, read the roleplay game, get introduced to the novels, that sort of thing, and just over time
It sounds like it's trying to build a community.
Yeah.
And a world.
Yeah.
A world that welcomes all visitors.
It's interesting that go on, Ken.
No, I was like, yeah.
The Shadowlands reminds me, you mentioned earlier Dark Souls. And truth be told, I have been the dice bag in a lot of cases. Like, I haven't really played these games.
Yeah.
I've watched my friends play these games, and I'm like, holy shit, a wolf has a sword in his mouth, and he's giant. He's like spinning around and shit.
Good old
That's
Sith.
cool. What's going on? And then they're like killing zombies in the forest, and I'm like, what are you doing? And like, I'm trying to like, farm my tumble or something. So I know a little bit about Dark Souls. I don't know, or Elder Scrolls or whatever the hell it's called. The
Elden Ring.
Whatever. All that. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
When you talk about the Shadowlands, it kind of reminds me of that feel of a game. Have you
Yeah.
considered
So
having something like that?
it's funny that you mention that. So Shadowlands, so you got 3 realms, and each realm is a concept. So everything in the mundane is it suffers to entropy. You're born and you die, and the elements, the patterns that were built around that built you is just recycled and moved for the next patterns and so forth. When a pattern or a spirit or a person comes to an end in the mundane, they appear as a ghost or as a memory in the Shadowlands. So if someone passes away in the mundane, they'll appear in the Shadowlands, oblivious to the fact that they've died, and they will be living in memories of their lifetime. So if you as a severed soul enter the Shadowlands, you're entering not a realm of physical material, you're entering a collective memory state. But every time you interfere or you perform magic, that makes the dead question if they're alive or not. It shatters their psyche, and they will sink to the next level of the Shadowlands and bring parts of their memory of parts of the Shadowlands with them. So the Shadowlands is a very different game, because it's a survival game where one wrong step, one wrong use of a spell, saying the wrong word, or anything that will remind the dead that they've died could force you to sink with them into the next level. So it's stealth, but you're not trying not to be seen. You're trying not to interfere with the memories of the dead, and you can just sink further and further. So like each plane of memory is like 30 or so years. So if you want to find something, a secret, an item, or something that existed in the 800 AD, you'd have to travel deep into the Shadowlands to find it. But as you go further down into the Shadowlands, the memories have decayed. There's something I call physical dementia, where the mountains has a spirit, but the mountains have slowly begun to forget what they are. So you could enter a mountain range and realize that there's just an empty space. You'll have to go around it, because the people, the dead, the spirits, the lower they sink, the less form they have. And all the good stuff, all the treasures and so forth are further down. So it's a bit like you could call it a dungeon crawl, but you're dungeon crawling through a rapidly deteriorating dungeon.
Honestly, it sounds like a more interesting
Inception.
lore of Inception, the movie.
Yeah.
Very similar in regards to time, and you don't really know what reality is. I think that's a great analogy.
And in my head,
does time shift the deeper you get into it? Yeah, go ahead. I was saying
there's no time shift. You're entering memories. So you could end up meeting your great grandparent.
Sure.
And you could, as you're walking through that plane of memory, you're walking through a day in their life, because they don't know they've died. They would just repeat the same episodes or a couple of years and so forth over and over again.
Do you have to have a connection to those people, or is it?
No. You just have to, as the Greek myth, as you're going sinking further in, you've got to abandon parts of you behind. Like Persephone had to, or Demeter had to leave parts of her behind to go further into Hades to rescue Persephone. So it's that sort of concept.
So I had two thoughts here, and I know we're getting on about time to skedaddle, but 2 ideas. It reminds me kind of I mean, Inception's just so good that actually kind of blasts what I was going to say. Digging into, and in the end, spoilers.
What dreams may come.
What dreams may come. There you go.
I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that.
There you go. All right, well, we won't spoil it. There it is.
What dreams may come? Okay. I'll give that a watch. I'll
It's
find
All
out.
right.
Robin
Fine,
Williams.
Ken.
Great. Yep. Sorry.
Yeah, and Cuba.
Oh,
Cuba,
yes.
Cuba,
I have heard of it.
No, it's great.
Yes.
It's a great movie. It's a great movie.
Yeah.
I'll watch that.
You get in the end of Inception, you're at a beach.
Mhm.
Renewal. There's an element of, okay, so who is the Lord? Surely,
Yeah.
surely there's a Hades, and yeah, there's got to be. And it reminds me. Oh yeah. So did you guys? Ken, do you know what Ravenloft is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just? Is it possible to pause and I'll be right back?
Yeah. Hit
Oh,
it.
absolutely.
Yep. Sure. I'll mute.
Interesting stuff. So we're going to wait on him to bounce. We'll give him the last few words.
Sure.
Probably gonna, Bobby B bounce in about 10 minutes. Ken, what do you think thus far?
I think it's a interesting game. I would play it if we wanted to set out time to play. It seems what's weird to me about this whole thing is I always felt like dungeon masters, arbiters, narrators, storytellers would not have an issue finding players. Like, I think that finding players should be easy. It seems like a lot of people would want to be called to play the game. It seems like much like us and trying to conscript players for a little mini one shot. It seems like he also has found it odd that they can't get players.
There's a buy-in.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people deal with. Any sort of audience, like for example, you have a book or a movie or a game or whatever, and you want people to not even buy it, like just look at it. That's their time, that's their effort. There's a buy-in they have to have, and is it worth? Do they have an excitement over it?
Sure.
So the struggle that John has had specifically with Kickstarter and all these things, I definitely understand. You have to build a community. And the big question is, how do you do that? That's something you and I are dealing with.
Well,
we've got this.
The thing is I've experienced this for 20 years, 25 years, ever since I made my first movie. And I was like, I want somebody to watch it, and people won't give me 5 minutes. It's a short film.
Spiral State, or is it something else?
I know, just any film. Like my first college short film, everybody, my friends, get together, come and watch this thing that I put hours into, and I think you'll like it. And they're like, yeah.
Nah. It's interesting.
I'd rather play this, video game or look at my phone or
it's like you're a musician. You do.
Yeah. I don't even share why? Yeah.
And that's the thing is, and yet, John, we're talking about the idea of how do you build a community? How do you get someone to take a chance on your product?
Yep.
And say, hey, look, this is actually solid. Come with me on this. Hey, check this out.
Yeah.
I mean, you can dumb it down to, hey, I know this really good restaurant. Hey, come with me. Check it out. And for lack of a better term, how do you convince people to give a damn? Right? When they will give a damn about some of the most vapid, if it's on Netflix, they'll watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, but that's by and large shit. So how do you have that credibility? I think that's really what I'm getting at. How do you make your system, your stories, your movie, music, how do you have credibility? Right?
I wish I knew. Because I don't like social media, so I imagine if you knew how to manipulate, exploit, well, that's the right word, just use social media for your
think it's the right
advantage.
word.
You could
That's the right word.
generate interest in something so easily if you knew how to do it. But then, as you say, yeah, Netflix or big production company could do that, and then when you watch it, it's just mediocre. It's just not worth watching. But people have watched it because it's so easy to get to. But it's hard. It's harder to find something that you don't even know exists.
Well,
And that's the trouble that we face.
These things, right?
You got to
Like-
dig in the base bins.
20 years ago, this didn't exist.
Yeah.
You know? And literally, like, homeless people have this.
Mhm.
I mean, like, for real. So it's one of those things of, not to diss homeless people, but you would assume homeless people don't have anything. They got phones. Imagine something that is so ubiquitous, like pants, cell phones. And 20 years ago, they didn't exist. Not like this, not like smartphones. Now, you have to have this. So what I'm trying to get at is, it is absolutely possible to take whatever it is that you're doing and throw it into the zeitgeist, or, you know, people's mind of saying, oh yeah, this is something that exists. Like, for example, D&D. The thing is, and I think the backlash is, D&D took, Gary Gygax, the guy, and Tracy Hickman, the guys who made D&D and Chainmail, they didn't see that. They have not seen what it becomes. We're talking like a pretty long time. And when I look at the social media thing, I'm about to do a short film crowdfunding thing on Seed and Spark. And I was looking up, how in the world do you prep for that? How do you do the crowdfunding specifically for a movie? I've done it for a book, but how do you do it for a movie? And there's a bunch of resources on YouTube. I forget her name. It's Emily Best, I think. Her name is Emily. I know her last name is Best. She's the originator of Seed and Spark. She's my age, by the way. And Seed and Spark is essentially the Kickstarter for movies, or one of them.
Right.
I'm listening to her interviews on this YouTube channel I really like, called Film Courage. And everything she's saying is, for me, profound. At the same time, I'm like, go fuck yourself. And the reason is because she is, actually, that's the interview right there. The reason is she has a mind for business and marketing. It's obvious to me by the way she talks. There's a matter of factness to it. It's obvious to her. And if you read about her story on Wikipedia, not to go off on the rails, the long and short of it is, she was going to do a movie and she needed some extra funding. And so she developed this crowdfunding thing called Seed and Spark. It did well. She put it into different things. It won some money, and then they made it public. And now she's a fucking multimillionaire, etc., which is great. But I think in her mind, it was obvious. And this is a corollary that I have. People that are skilled at something, that are good at stuff, are idiots in this facet. They don't realize that the skill they have is not normal. If you don't struggle, like, for example, John, if you're really good at math, maybe you're a very creative person, it might be obvious to you to do certain things. It's the easy stuff. But to most people, it's not easy. It's not obvious. It's really easy for people that are very talented to take their talent for granted. So when it comes to marketing and business, people that have that mindset, they're like, obviously, how obviously, you idiots. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. You're good at that. And in our society at this time, that is a boon. And we can do it too, but man, we're at the bottom of the mountain. We're deep down in the Shadowlands. We've forgotten who we are, we gotta climb up.
I mean, I'm atrocious at marketing. But it's having that type of imagination of you have this, what you have right now, and you want to go or create something over here that's something different. And it's having that particular type of imagination where you can go, well, I just need to do A, B, and C. How do I get to that? I'll do this, do that, and they can build it, and then they can use what's out there. Actually, part of the imagination is just realizing that those resources are out there.
Right.
And that is you're right. That is a skill. That's something I don't have.
So for people like us, we're, for lack of a better word, creatives. And Ken, he puts out a movie or a song or art or writing, or he does all of it. And there's a point where when you realize people don't care, it crushes you.
Yeah.
And then you start fighting that battle of giving up. And for someone that has the creative ability of marketing and whatever that is, business acumen, I think a lot of times they take it for granted. It's a boon.
And a lot of these marketing videos that I'm like, how do I market better? The marketing videos are successful because everybody's looking at the marketing videos because they want to know how to market. And so it seems like a lot of this stuff and learning how to do wear all the different hats and do all the different things, it doesn't, like, you don't get anything niche or good or interesting because just the process stuff with the most money, because that's really, when I hear marketing anymore, that's all I think. How much of a budget do I have to promote this, and who do I promote it to, and why? Because the soft way of promotion, it doesn't necessarily work. It's like if you're a band and you go on tour, you're hiring a promotion person in each and every town. You're not hiring a promotion person in just the one town that you're in.
Yeah.
So I mean, marketing is tough. Yeah, for sure.
In this topic, where does your definition of success come into it? Because I remember having a conversation with a cousin, and he's a genius. He's come up with something where he's set for life. And I was talking to him about it, and he was saying, "Well, hold on, you've written books. That's amazing." I said, "Well, yeah, I suppose so." But then the next thing he said was, "And are you going to make money from it?" And I thought, well, probably not. It's a roleplay game. I'm not really going to make money. My idea of this is just in here. If I don't get it out, it's going to drive me crazy. I just want to get out there. And
nice.
for me, this book is already a success because I look at it, I'm reading through it, there's little errors which I'm fixing for the next draft, but it has pretty much conceptualized everything that was in my head, and I've put into a book that when I read, I enjoy reading it. If other people enjoy reading it, that's fantastic. But for me, my definition of success is creating something. But for marketing, success doesn't cut it for marketing. For marketing, your definition of success is perhaps how much money you can make. When the person asked the question about how many copies I hope to sell.
Yeah, it's Ableton.
That's... I might have given a flippant answer. I apologize if I did, but for me, that's not even on the radar. I just want to create something, which I have, but I want to create more. And even if the Kickstarter fails, I'll still get this book on drive-through, and I'll move on to something else.
Like, you will inevitably do it.
Yeah.
So there is a concept of inevitability. that has to be garnered. As
Ooh.
in, I have to understand that if I give you $25 for your Kickstarter, that's awesome. I'm going to get the perks, the whatever, maybe my name in the book or whatever it is.
Yeah.
A shout out, hand job, whatever it is that you do for $25. Okay. Whatever. Depends on how, the pound and the USD. Regardless, if I don't give you that 25, you are still going to do it, which means I'm jumping on the bandwagon. I believe you're going to do it. If I don't believe you're going to do it, I'm not giving you $25.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If I can have an impact, I was looking at a campaign last night and I was like, oh, they're $250 short of their goal.
Oh, God.
But that's it. And I was like, oh, and it's this film. Here's the thing, y'all. I live in Los Angeles. I ain't got $250 to drop, okay?
Yeah.
I don't have that. I need to take that $250 and put it into what Ken and I do, okay?
It's true.
Yeah.
Giving it to this thing, I don't have it. But I thought, but if I could make their thing happen.
Yeah. If it's an amazing feeling. Like when I did the first Kickstarter, when the donations were coming in, and it doesn't tell you who. And I'm kind of thinking, well, I might ask my friends, and they've said, oh yeah, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And think, well, it doesn't add up. There were people out there who I've never spoken to, who have seen what I've put up, and they've said, yeah, okay, this is worth a punt. That's such.
Nice.
And that failed, but I got such a buzz. I thought, wow, it's just encouraging. It's just the encouragement from friends is from strangers. You can't put a price on it because that's the seed of a community, isn't it?
So you guys know I did not do the 250, by the way.
Well, I mean, you had to buy a face mask, a respirator for $40, so you don't breathe in all that plastic from the fires.
No, on Seed to Spark or Seed and Spark, if you get to 80%, then it goes through. Unlike Kickstarter. Yeah, so it's different.
Nice.
Sableton's asked this question a while ago. Are gaming conventions useful for you? And I didn't mean to cut you off, Ken. I just wanted to ask that question.
What do you mean? What do you mean by gaming conventions? Like classes, levels?
No, I think what they're asking, and Sableton, let us know if this is what you mean. Is things like cons?
Oh,
so conventions.
Oh, I would love that. I would love to do one of those. In Newcastle or Gateshead, near where I live, there is one every year or something like that, where it's 40k tabletop battles and stuff like that. But I would love. That would be like one of my bucket list.
Yeah, well, make that happen. I mean,
getting the stall and having the products out there and just that'd be great.
It sounds like a buy-in too, though. But I mean, that's a buy-in. Yeah. Like, if you've got to print the books, you got to bring them with you. You got to park. You got to have the table. Yeah. I mean, unless you're going in with like a trench coat and books like just hooked in. You just open up your trench coat. Hey, you want to buy a book, a TTRPG book, just out from under your suitcase, so you don't have to pay the $1,000 table fee.
Yeah. All right, Ken. Last words from us, and then we'll throw it to John.
John, words. I think I want to play your game. Let's make that happen. Let's make some friends. Let's invite one or two of our people and do a session 0, stream it, do it right, do it the right way.
Appreciate that.
I think you're interesting, and I look forward to hearing from you again in the very near future.
Oh, great, thank you.
And we've got this game coming up, John, and we'd love to have you.
Yeah.
We'll chat. We'll chat.
Yep. Yeah.
So, for our guests, we give them the last words.
All right.
Joke, aphorism, pitch, funny face.
Something I've learned doing this is never doubt yourself, just question. Doubt is the answer to the question that you're too afraid to ask. And I think that's the thing I've learned from doing this is just don't doubt yourself. If you've hit an obstacle, just ask yourself, right, how do I do it? Do I need to do it? Should I do it? And then move on, get on with it. But once doubt starts sinking in, you've lost. You can't succeed if you're doubting yourself. So that's my advice to anyone who's me 10 years ago, 5 years ago, hoping to get to this point. And thank you so much for having me on. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's been great. I mean, it's half 11 and it's been brilliant. So thank you so much.
Thank you for hooking it up with us for so long. I know we started a little bit exactly on time.
Yes, yeah.
And it's been forever, but thank you for hooking it up and actually doing all you did. All right, we're out. Lead us out.
Yeah, we are like every week. This is the Geeky Gamer podcast with hosts Ken and Bill. The music from tonight's episode was by all lowercase letters and Mr. Interrupt. Couchfire Media brought us media and art production. Toirible Productions did all that other stuff, whatever it is. That is, I don't know. Thank you, John Wilson, and I look forward to hearing a whole lot more about the elements of the role-playing games that you got coming up. Especially, hopefully, look forward to playing the Linen Tapestry sometime soon.
Thank you.
See y'all.
Take care.
And